Hi, this is John Davidson from the Hollywood Squares, and That's Incredible, and Disney movies, and where else. And I love listening to the Claus Corner. It's one of the best blogs around. The guy's very clever, and I'm proud to be supporting the Claus Corner.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Claus Corner. Today's guest is a poet, writer, sound engineer, and producer. He is known to as many fans as the Sorcerer King. So without further ado, please welcome former guest and now present guest, Rob Bull to the Claus Corner. Rob, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How you
Yep.
doing?
I'm doing great. I just want to talk about, I wanted to have you back on the show for a variety of reasons, and we're going to get into a big announcement. You've been helping me a lot with this show, and I really do appreciate it. But I want to go back a little bit of how I first met you, and maybe a little refresher for the people who didn't see the episode with, let's talk about what most of the episode was about the first time I met you.
Yes, yeah.
No, so we talked about your mother and how her whole thing. We'll talk about what happened to your mother first of all when she was a kid, and then because I met you at Twilight Zone convention. It was called Serling Fest after Rod Serling in his hometown in Binghamton, New York. And you and I were talking, and you wrote a lot of songs that had to do with the Twilight Zone. And you mentioned that the Twilight Zone was played a huge part not only in your life but in your mother's life. So just refresh my audience what happened and why I had you on the show originally.
Yes. My mother, she was in a pretty bad situation when she was a kid. I think it was from 9 years old. She was abducted by like a guy who lived in the neighborhood that that she lived in. It was more or less, I guess, down the street, which could make it even that much worse. And
Yeah.
then she was held there, and there were she suspects that he was involved in other forms of human trafficking too. Um, and she had it was just an awful situation. And sorry, it's something that's tough
Yeah.
to get through sometimes.
Well, I didn't
Um,
want to drudge that up. The reason I'm bringing that up was that I guess after this episode aired, there was some pushback from some other family members
yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
because, as far as I know, and I'm actually friends with your mother on Facebook, she loved the show. She loved the interview. She thought you were great. I thought you were great. I just had a compliment from because this show airs on YouTube and we're going to talk about some other platforms in a little while, but right now it's airing on several radio stations in the Connecticut area where I live. And I got an email saying, Rich, I turned on the radio. I heard you. I said, what show was it? Oh, it was a great episode about the Twilight Zone. So I wasn't sure at first if it was Ann Serling. And he mentioned your name. I'm like, he goes, he said it was inspiring. He loved it. So I think
Wow.
telling that story did mean a lot to people. Unfortunately, there was a lot of bad things that happened, but I think that it's an
Yes.
inspiring story. And the way you said it, you did it with a lot of class, a lot of dignity. And I'm glad that you did it the way you did. And
Yeah.
sorry that some family members were upset about it. But the most important thing is that the people involved, like your mother and your
Yes,
grandmother,
exactly. And
yeah,
and like and I think that's why it's hard to talk about sometimes, like giving just the cliff notes, because there's a lot of context and
yeah.
time framing and situations with people that get into so much. So it's like I don't want to just blurt something out and have it be misconstrued, or that's like the facts of the matter is, unfortunately, my grandmother, who since passed, and she loved the episode too, and she had a very rough upbringing and childhood and stuff. She was born or married and at as a child at 14, I believe. So she was with somebody even at 13, and so she didn't have the mental wherewithal to stick up for herself and her kids, let alone, she just kind of lived a meager, struggling life. And I mean, luckily it turned around. Good things happened. My mom did get out of that situation. Luckily, through whatever store developed the pictures that the guy took of my mom, the police came and arrested him, and he was on the sex offender registry for a long time. We had since tried like looking up to see like what like if he's still around or whatever, but there hasn't been anything about him since like right around the time the pandemic happened. So maybe he could have passed away of COVID or something. I mean, passed away is too good of a phrase to use for that guy, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the most important thing is I'm glad that she's doing well, you're doing well, and I'm very, very sorry for your loss about your grandmother. She seemed like a really nice person. I got a chance to go back and forth with her talking about the episode.
Yeah.
But the reason that I met you at the Sterling Fest, the Twilight Zone convention, was that what got your mother through, there was a TV in the room. And you can go
Yes.
back to this
Yes.
episode and you can watch and hear all the details. It's a great, inspiring, and
Yeah.
very sad story.
Yeah, I
But
can tell a short little bit of that.
yeah,
I remember when I got back from the Twilight Zone convention, I had asked somebody from there, an older woman asked me how a young person like me is so uh, obsessed comes to mind. I don't think that's what she said, but somebody that's so infatuated, fanatic about the Twilight Zone. She asked me if anybody had ever watched it around me or stuff like that, and my brain is my memory is not that so good. So I was like, honestly, I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember, all I can remember is it just being there. Like I don't remember a specific how it started or whatever. So I me and my wife actually got home and went to my mom's house, and I asked her that same question, and she said that she's always loved the Twilight Zone, and that there was a little broken down TV in the basement where she slept, in bad conditions. She was locked in there. She had a bucket to um, go to the bathroom in, and I can't imagine the feeling of that. But she had a TV, and she said one of the things that helped her escape, even if momentarily, were reruns of the Twilight Zone and Star Trek. And she specifically mentioned Kick the Can,
mhm.
which I did the service at my grandma's funeral and wake, and um, at the end of it, everybody from the family, I brought the can that rolled to us at the Serling Fest, and right after we all went outside and got in a big circle and just kicked it, and it was beautiful because there was no tears then. Everybody was laughing and smiling and just kicking a can, because that was one of my grandmother's. I think she said it on the video. She's like, "Oh, I used to love kick the can as a kid."
Yeah.
So I wanted to keep that.
No.
I wanted to keep the game of of a young girl alive. You know, especially somebody who lost their childhood so early. You know.
Yeah. No. Well, I want to talk about the episode "Kick the Can" because I rewatched the Twilight Zone movie, the movie that with John Landis directed an episode, Steven Spielberg directed an episode, Joe Dante directed an episode.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, Steven Spielberg is growing up all the way from Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters, all the way up until now. He is definitely one of my all-time favorites. And watching that episode of Kick the Can is another reason why he's one of my favorites, because The Twilight Zone is probably my all-time favorite show. And for Steven Spielberg to actually make his episode of Kick the Can even better than a television episode, in my mind, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. And I'll tell you why I liked it better, because I don't think I'm really giving away any spoilers by now.
Right.
TV episode they they're old fuddy duddies, and this guy comes in and says, "Oh, we gotta play kick the can," and then they all become young and run away. In the movie, they realize how good they had it as being old, and they realize we just wanted to be young and see how it felt again to be young. But I miss this, I miss that. I don't want to go back to being young again. Where am I going to live? I
Yeah.
actually love that angle on it because it's not that the episode was realistic, but the fact that I like he brought in the feelings and it made it a little bit more sentimental. And then and there's one kid, the one who wanted to be Errol Flynn. He jumped out and he took off. But I loved his take on the Twilight Zone. What's your opinion on that?
I would say I prefer the show version better, only because I mean probably only because the connection
Yeah,
specifically to that episode. But also I love the black and white and but I love that movie too, and I love that segment in particular. I love the actor. I forgot his name, but I know he
Scatman
plays.
Crothers.
Yes, okay, Scatman Crothers. Yep, and he's also in another one of my favorite movies, The Shining.
Yes.
Um, and he gives a really he brings that character to life. You can really it's like you want to be friends with that guy, from
Yeah.
that episode and or from that segment, the Steven Spielberg one, and yes, I do like the end too. How um it's a little different. They kind of made it more um like you said. I feel like they delve into it a little more, where it's not just they disappear into the night. Although I do like that one too. I like the fact that both exist.
Oh no, definitely. And
You know.
I am not slamming the original. The reason I bring that up was that I like the fact it seemed like you said, they delve a little bit more deeper into the emotions. And then to me,
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching that growing up, I always said the same thing. I was like, where are they going to go? Where are they going to live? And I like the fact that he actually brought that up and said, no, what are we going to do? My husband's dead. My wife's dead. I don't want to go back to being a kid again. I can't live my life without this person. And it's just all these feelings came up. Like, I love
Yeah.
being young. I love being able to feel young for a good 25, 30 minutes, but I want to go back to my old life. And then what they did was they kept the essence of being young, the older body, but the
Yes.
essence of young. And that's why I think that I like that one a little bit better. And
Yes.
Scatman Crothers, I
That's
have
the
to say,
lesson.
he is such a
That's the
great actor. And I never knew this until probably about 5 years ago. One of my favorite cartoons growing up was Hong Kong Phooey. And my brother bought the box set. You have to check it out. It's a show that I watched in the
that
70s.
sounds so familiar.
Scatman Crothers was the voice of Hong Kong Phooey. It's hilarious. I never knew. And now I watch it. I cannot see anybody else doing that. It's a,
Hong Kong Fooey?
yep, Phooey. Hong Kong Phooey.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yep. I've seen that show on Boomerang.
Yes. I used to watch it
Yeah.
Saturday morning cartoons.
Me
Never.
and Ashley watched the Twilight Zone movie at sometime in summer, I remember. Um this last summer.
Yeah.
Um and and we were watching that segment, the Steven Spielberg one specifically. And we noticed that one part, when they're going outside, the the elderly people, the people in the home, when they're going outside, and they're kind of like they're all giddy and saying stuff. And I forgot which character it was. I think it was like the kind of heavier set guy with the glasses.
Mhm.
He says something that's just nonsensical. Like, and we know it because we kept. I was like, what did he just say? And I rewound it probably 30 times, and it was it's something so nonsensical and funny. but but that's kind of I bring that up because I realized we were talking before, I think last time, about the Twilight Zone review series that
Yes.
I want to be doing soon. And so that's the kind of stuff also I want to be doing, is not just like talking about what the summary of the episode is, and stuff. I want to do more like I mean, I will do that obviously, but also get into how the acting in certain episodes is how it subtly speaks to you, and like the things that actors do and say. Um, and I just brought that up, the kick the can episode, because I forgot what he said, but it was just
Yeah.
purely nonsensical gibberish, and I was like, how did that make that in the movie? I even tried. I tried watching it with subtitles. I looked up the script on online. There was nothing.
That's
There was
funny.
nothing that fit what he said at all. And yeah, it was just hilarious. But I like to pinpoint on crazy stuff like that that you miss sometimes. You know.
Well, I love that. And if you ever need a guest to be on the show for an episode, I would be more than happy to. I could talk about Twilight Zone all day, all night. And that's why I
Absolutely, me
love
too.
that book, The Twilight Zone Companion. Lately, I bought it years ago in 1982 when it first came out, and I
Hmm.
just rebought it again, the fourth or fifth edition. I'm going to have the author on the show sometime soon. I've been so backed up with guests that I haven't had a chance to go through the book the way I wanted to go through. So I want to definitely do my research because I can talk about that show. But the reason I brought that up was that because that book, if people who don't know, has every episode has the intro, the synopsis, the outro, behind the scenes, makings of all these different things. It's such a great informative book. Even if you're not a Twilight Zone fan, you'd find it fascinating. All the different actors that people had no idea were in the show, like Jack Klugman, William Shatner. I mean, the list goes on and on. Those just two I could think
Yes.
about the best. And the fact that, I mean, to me, that's when writing was great. And I'll give you an example. Like Twilight Zone is one of my all-time favorite shows, but two other shows that have great writing and they're still hilarious today, no matter how many times I see it, are I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners. No
Yep.
matter how many times I see them, I know exactly what's going to happen. I can do a one-man show in all these shows, and I still laugh like it's the first time I've seen it. And that's definitely a testament to the writing on all three shows.
Yes, exactly. And that's what it is. But it's the writing, because you never see something that was just like only visually good
Mm-hmm.
that really lasts, that stands like that test of time. Um like if it's purely just visually good and the writing is not, then
Yeah.
off or whatever. It's like people really you, you don't need complex CGI or crazy stuff. I and and it's sad because that's what we're it seems like that's what we're, like media and movies and stuff in particular is going towards, is just doing the big explosions. Like
Yeah.
I feel like dialogue has kind of taken the backseat.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'll tell you, this is when I first noticed it for me. The first movie where I said, oh, this is the end of cinema as we know it was when Twister came out. The whole movie for me was, oh, wait, there's a Twister. Oh, wait, there's a bigger one. Oh, look at that one. It's even bigger. It's like
Yeah.
there was
Yep.
no story to it, no intelligent dialogue. It was just, let's show how many great CGI effects we could put into one movie. And then it
Yeah.
seems like after that, it just snowballed. And I like movies that have a little bit of both. A perfect example of that is Indiana Jones. It has lots of great
Yeah.
action. It's not really CGI, but there's special effects in there. But has a great story. It's funny. It's
Yeah.
serious
The
at times.
comedy.
So movies like that, I think you can have a mixture of both. Like
Classic.
yeah, like two of my favorite makeup, well, actually three of my favorite makeup artists are Rick Baker, who did American Werewolf in London and so many other ones. Rob Bottin,
Hmm.
who did John Carpenter's The Thing, and Tom Savini, who did everything from Creep Show, Dawn of the Dead, Day of
Oh
the
yeah.
Dead, Maniac. The list goes on.
Friday the
I mean,
13th.
yeah. So those three of them, I'm
Yeah,
choosing
right.
those. You can have people that
Oh wait, no.
can still make they don't have to, they can do it old school. And to me, I think the old school is the better way still. CGI may look more fancy, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, I mean, on like uh, most of my favorite artists and writers and stuff, they're all dead.
Yeah.
It's and that's it's unfortunate, but it gives me something to work towards as well, because stories mean a lot to me, and they always have. You know, like whenever I was feeling down and and stuff, like stories were always the things to lift me up and give me the spirit I need to take control of a situation, or
Hmm.
just take control of my emotions and not feel as lost in this society, or even if I do feel lost, or feel like out of place or whatever. Now I've come to realize that that has been a gift, because I wouldn't want to be anybody else, honestly.
Yep.
And that's coming from somebody who most of his childhood and teen years and stuff just really wanted to be anyone anywhere else,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
that's what I love about a good book because it transports you into another world. For those couple hours you're reading a book, you can forget about everything. You're not even thinking about all the problems you have in life. And it's funny because I interviewed Owen King, Stephen King's son,
Oh
and I
wow.
asked him, how he, was it basically set in stone that you were going to be an author because your mother's an author, your father's an author, your other brother Joe Hill's an author? He goes, no. He goes, when I was younger, he goes, I used to see my mom in one room writing, my dad in the other room writing, and it looked so lonely. He goes, you're in there for hours, you're just typing away. Then I realized I have all these characters in one room with me. He goes, I'm not alone. He goes, I realize how much fun it actually is to write and to read. And that's,
Yes.
I'm bringing that up for a reason because earlier tonight, I didn't get a chance to read it. You sent me a story that you wrote. So I want to talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. It's I I coined it the storyteller. And I guess it's kind of like, in a way, it has that Stephen King-esque kind of writer making a character out of themselves that isn't necessarily them, you know. It's basically a writer who longs for more and wants to do anything to get some kind of power and recognition through his writing. So he, cliche, makes a deal with the devil, per se, and he finds out his writings are starting to bleed from the page into reality, and and there's a lot of stuff in there that comes from, like, my life and point of view personally. Not all of it, but aspects, like when he talks about his growing up, and his one of his family members is very abusive, um, and he sees that within himself, but he hates it, you know. So he wants to do anything he can to change that, and he makes the deal, and he doesn't realize what he's necessarily doing. But yeah, there's a lot of very mystical elements in it, and I just kept I started writing it, and then I just kept going and going, and every once in a while I'll go back to it and add a little more, and I'm not sure. I'll probably I'll probably release it eventually, but I'm still working on it. But it's really long, actually, for a first short story, I feel like. But yeah, it's going to be a good one. I hope, at least, you know. Like, for me, it seems like it's a good exercise just in storytelling without writing music.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
getting like the poetry, the rhythm of rhythmless writing.
Yeah, yeah,
You
no,
know.
definitely. I think I have a book on Amazon, a little self promotion here called "Confessions of a Frenetic Mind." So I wrote 5 short stories, and the question for you is, I want to compare your writing to how I do it. Are you a plotter or a pantser? Meaning, do you plot out the story before you write it, or do you write off the seat of your pants, like saying, "No, I'm just going to start writing, and whatever comes to me at the moment," or do you have outlines, details that are going to be in the story, and then you just write it and fill in the details. You fill in
um
the blanks.
i'm a I'm a seeder. I'm a like you said, like a painter. I sit down and I let my brain, I like pick at my brain and try to push it to see what I can come up with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to see what sounds good. Sometimes it'll start small enough, just as pinpointing on a word, Like,
Yeah.
what word should I form a sentence around, and then that builds. It's kind of like, I guess it would be some like a little bit kind of like a trance. It's I go in and just let I put on this one for this story in particular. I put on this one classical musical song. I think it's called The Planets, but it's a very long, ominous, simple song that's just and I like that. So I guess even though it's a story, there's still music involved. But
Yeah.
yeah, I try to pull whatever's inside of me out because I know that there's something in there, and there's a lot of I feel like some kind of I feel in touch with something. I don't know what, but
Mhm.
I feel in touch with something that is works through me or um with me, hopefully
Yeah.
not through me. And I guess that's probably where it comes to like the making a deal with the devil and not necessarily knowing what's going to happen, and or not having that not having that feeling that you're going to be ever good at anything unless it comes from a mystical place that you give something for,
Yeah.
you know.
It's funny. You got to check this out. I have a friend when I was in bands back in the 80s. My friend used to be in a band. Our bands used to play together. Then he moved to LA. When he was in LA, there was something in the, I want to say paper, it was probably online, not in papers, or pretty much a thing in the past. But it said, "Do you want to sell your soul to the devil for a documentary?" So he applied for it, and he actually got picked. It's called "I Sold My Soul to Satan." It's all about him trying to sell his soul to Satan and become a rock star. It's kind of
That's
hilarious
awesome.
and kind of sad at the same way. In the same way, mostly he's
Yeah.
not sad. He said he goes, "I was just doing it for self promotion. Just wanted to get my name out there." He goes, "I'm in LA. I don't really believe in any of this. I just figured, what the hell? Literally, what the hell?" So, but there's some other people that really were sad and so I interviewed him afterwards,
Yeah.
and he said that I sometimes he'll say like, "Oh yeah, this happened," and other times he's like, "No, there was nothing to it. It was just all in my head." So, what's your opinion? Do you believe that there is a heaven, there is a hell, there is a devil, there is a God?
I definitely believe that there's something.
Yeah.
And um and when it comes to that, it's funny that he says it's in his head, because I go back and forth with that thinking myself, where it's like I was like, this is the devil coming through me.
Hmm.
This is because I didn't sign any contracts or anything, but I went went along the same way,
Hmm.
where I looked up a whole bunch of that stuff, and even before that, my mother, she for a long time. Sometimes I think she still does. I'm not sure. But she would always she would have sleep paralysis, and so she would see demons and stuff coming out of the walls and sitting on her
Wow.
chest. And I remember one time when I was 13. This was this was one of the like things that will always stay with me. That she was we had she had left my stepdad for a little bit, so we were staying at a different place. Um, and so I had my own room. She had her own room, and one night she she comes running in my room, screaming and holding a Bible, and tears streaming down her face, and she's screaming, "You didn't hear me! You didn't hear!" And I was like, "No, what happened?" She's like, "They came out of the walls." She said they came out of the walls, and
Wow.
they were like these dog, like hellhound looking type things, and they levitated the bed with her on it. She couldn't move, and they spun it around really fast, and it went back down, and she went in, they went back into the walls, and she got up and grabbed the Bible, like she ran in with the Bible. So she ran in and told me that, and I can't say for other people whether or not that it's real or not, but I do believe that she saw what she saw and happened what had happened, because she's never been a liar, ever, especially to me. She's always been an honest, wonderful person.
Yeah.
And so it's like that kind of stuff hits me in a different way, because those were the kind of like stories that I grew up with as a kid. And I guess I went the other way, with rather than like going to church and stuff all the time. I maybe stupidly, I mean, I feel like I'm all right for now, but
Yeah.
I stupidly kind of thought that the way to battle evil was to be like to kind of become some kind of like a balance of good and evil. Like, to beat evil, you kind of have to become evil, and that's what I always thought. And plus, when I was a kid, I had people that would use the Bible and tell me that I was evil and whatever. Even before I started wearing the satanic stuff that I wear, and having the stuff that I do, even before that. And I think that also might have led to this, was people saying that I was. I mean, certain people. I don't want to name names and put people out there, but people close that would use the Bible against me, while they would be awful, like awful adults,
Yes.
and just say that I was awful and stuff. And so I started to relate to the devil, where it was like, he wanted Lucifer. The devil started as Lucifer. Lucifer was an angel, and he wanted more power. So he was going behind God's back, talking to the angels and trying to get them to turn against God. And once God found out, that's when he stripped him of his wings and threw him into the abyss. And because actually, before, Lucifer was the god of, or and the angel of music. He used to create heavenly songs. And and so once I started looking into like that kind of stuff about the Bible, and I was like, I was like, I kind of get it, where it's you cast down by your father. At least I don't think God is bad or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't hate God. I don't hate Jesus. I actually really love all aspects of religion and characters. And I mean characters. So how we can get in trouble saying that, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Well, you get in
And
trouble
so,
for saying anything anymore. So
yeah, I I love the imagery of the satanic symbols and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I feel like, whether it's real or not, like your friend said, it's if I think if you make it real enough in your head, then you can start to work to manifest
Oh yeah, definitely.
proof.
Well, I want to give you my opinion. Here's what I think. I think that there is something out there. I believe there's some
Hmm.
kind of power in the universe, but I think the Bible is complete bullshit. And I'll tell you what I mean. I think the Bible is man-made because they wanted to create order. And if you look at the Bible, this is the joke I always say. It's like 10 commandments are basically the worst traits of all humans. Envy, greed. So, I mean, all the things like don't worship any other gods before me. Like, why are you jealous of everybody else? It's just like I
Yes.
always make a joke, and then if people work on Sunday, they're stoned to death. If you're gay, you're banished from heaven. If you
Yeah.
are a
If you
woman and
wear
you
a
do
certain
this,
kind of
so
cloth.
I always make the joke. I'm like, the for Old Testament, God's an angry prick, and then he has a kid in the New Testament and mellows out and he becomes a nice guy. But I
Yeah.
don't
Right.
I really don't
Yeah.
think that my opinion, again, people don't get mad. I'm just telling what I think. I think that the Bible, because I mean, come on, most of these stories were told thousands of years later. It's like playing that telephone game. It's like, I'm going to tell you, you
Yes.
tell Ashley, Ashley tells my wife tells her boss. By the time it gets back to me, it's going to be a completely different story. So how can you say 1,000 years ago, oh yeah, this is exactly what happened? Well, were you there? No, but this is, and Another example is
Yeah.
the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found them in the Red Sea. Who made this person editor and said, "Well, these chapters they're no good.
Yes.
This is the word of God right here." Well, what about
Corruption.
those? There's so many things, and you know what? I love. I don't like fighting. I like debating, and I had a
Yes.
couple debates. This is you're gonna laugh at this one. I had a couple debates with a, a priest, and he
Oh,
was saying this is when the new pope, or he's not new anymore. The current pope came out. He goes, "I don't like that new pope." I said, "Why?" Because he said the atheists and gays should be allowed in heaven. I said, "Yeah, what's the big deal?" Well, that's not what the Bible says. I said, "The Bible also says that you should love everyone and you shouldn't
yes.
judge." I said, "I thought that he was doing what God wanted." No, that's not what he said. And he was getting so angry because he
That's,
didn't like the
yep.
fact that he's changing the workings of what was written. Because to me, this is what I don't like about religion versus science. Because in religion, it's written in stone, you can't change anything. In science, you can prove something is wrong. I don't care how many thousands of years later, like, oh, we always thought this, but now we have the technology, we can prove. With religion, oh no, this is exactly how it happened. You can't change a word of it. Well, yeah, you can. The more you use
Yeah.
common sense. A great movie to watch is called Religulous with Bill Maher. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh, no, no, I haven't.
It's a
But Bill Maher
documentary.
is awesome.
Oh, he's great. He's probably one of my favorite. He has a TV show on HBO called Real Time. I watched him when he was on
Yes.
Politically Incorrect,
Hmm.
but I like the fact that he makes so much sense, but does it in a funny way. And another example would be, you got it's funny, but George Carlin. He brought up
Oh,
so many, like he says, there's an invisible man in the sky, and he gives you a list of rules. And if you don't follow these rules, you're gonna burn and die and burn in hell. But he loves you.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's like the joke that I always make. Like he's a vengeful God, but he's a loving God.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I believe that there is, I mean, and I can tell you things that happen in my life that would make me believe there's something out there, but I just don't think that he's out there looking at everybody, judging you, or listening to your prayers so that he hopes that the Red Sox win. You know, I don't think
Yeah.
that. I don't think that it's
No.
it's like that. I just unfortunately, and you know what's funny? You brought up a great point. I think the people that are so quote unquote the most religious are the most judgmental, evil people. Meaning that they go around acting like they're better than everybody. They're so condescending, and then meanwhile they're cheating on their spouse. They're stealing whatever you want to say, but they're the ones that are saying,
Yes.
"Oh, you're going to go to
They
hell." It's like, well, what makes you so much better than me?
yeah, exactly. Like the I feel like you can be religious, but you can also not be so judgmental because I mean, it's in he without sin cast the first stone, and
Exactly.
that's and who are you? You're human. Who are
Hmm.
you to judge? We're all in this together, especially when it comes to something like that, a belief,
Yes.
and it's and I've met Christians and Muslims and people like that have their beliefs, but they won't put you down because for your beliefs, and I think that's what it should be all about. And I think that I agree that there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that is just doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
especially anymore when when you can't control everything like that, and especially when it comes to like people's sexual orientations, like you're born the way that you are, so I believe that, and I've
Yeah.
everyone that I've met, they start out the way that they start out, but there are also a lot of beautiful lessons in the Bible, and specifically in the book of John, where it talks all about Jesus. That is probably my new favorite book of the Bible, because the first one was Revelations, where again the God will come
Yeah.
down and the devil will take control, and he'll be and everybody will have the mark of the beast, and that's how I got. That was my
Hmm.
I got
Yeah.
and I fight with the one day I'm going to get a regular cross on this side and have a battle of angels and demons coming up, culminating in my chest, because that's how I feel. I feel like I'm and I think that's just how it is as being a human. You have your good side, and you have the side that is animalistic and uh not so good,
No,
whether
exactly.
it's, you know, whether it's whatever it is. And I get that out. I get my bad side out through my music and through that kind of storytelling, you
I'm
know.
glad you have that outlet that where you can
Me
get your
too.
thoughts out. So, before we get into your music, so I want to talk about that too.
Yep.
There's a documentary I highly recommend to everybody. It's called Hail Satan. It's not what you think. It's all about the Church of Satan, which again is not what you think. They
Yeah.
actually are great people.
Yeah, a
They
little too
they're
tame for me.
they're
No.
yeah, no, their rules, their tenements, whatever you want to call them. I forgot exactly how
Yeah.
they were, but they're so much. They actually in the documentary they kick people out for being too bad. And one woman says, "How bad do you have to be get kicked out of the Church of Satan?" But they're basically good people, and they just don't. They're more agnostic, which I agree with because nobody really knows for sure
Yeah.
what is up there, what's down there. Everybody is not sure, and that's what agnostic means. So I think that the only way you're going to find out was, which I hope I don't find out for a long, long time, until, but nobody really knows for sure. So this whole documentary is with them trying to get the statue put on different things. It's really good, and if you
Yeah. The
watch it, it's
Baphomet.
not what you think. There's not a bunch of Satan worshiping, um, with the fire and all the different
Yeah.
incantations. It's just normal
Which,
people like me and you that
yeah,
have their
it's
beliefs.
like a regular.
Yeah,
It's kind of like it's a church. It's a congregation of people that get together and kind of they, like you said, they don't worship Satan. They don't worship God either. I
no,
don't know if there's any worshiping going on, but it just seems like a community of people, kind of like what the church, in my opinion, I think should be.
yeah.
Any church, any kind of religion, and and I'm happy for anybody that has some kind of anything. It's really unfortunate when they use it, um, to belittle and push out rules like dogmas and stuff. And like you're saying, like the Ten Commandments, yeah, I think we can all agree that most of those, yeah, you shouldn't do, or yeah, is it the Ten Commandments? Yeah,
Yeah,
like
well,
the
no, it's just, yeah. There's
do
the
what
things in
thou.
there. It's like, I'm going to refer people again to George Carlin, which people think it's funny because he's a comedian, but he was one of the most intelligent people,
Mm-hmm.
because he breaks the Ten Commandments down into three, and it's funny, but he makes so much sense doing it. I have to say, my favorite, and I'm going to tell you why. My favorite religious figure has to be the Dalai Lama, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary in him one day, and then that sort of prompted me to read a book, which prompted me to start going to a Buddhist temple not too far from me just to check it out. And I love what they preach. Basically, their whole thing is treat others the way you want to be treated, or you're going to turn into a bug.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Or you come back, and yeah, I was listening to something on the Dalai Lama the other day, and how interesting that once every like Dalai Lama dies, they have to go on this adventure
yes,
to find the next reincarnation of that Dalai Lama. I love that.
and
You know?
unfortunately, the last Dalai Lama that was going to take over for this one was kidnapped by the Chinese. Because I'm sure you know that he went into exile and he's in Tibet right now, and because the Chinese were taking over, so he's in the mountains. And but so that unfortunately they'll never know what happened to him. But I like what he said. He's actually trying to make the next Dalai Lama a woman. That's what he's. But they have a whole thing where they have to do tests on the baby and then see if that's the real.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, you can't really make
Yeah.
the Dalai Lama a man or a woman. I feel like, right?
Yeah. Well, what I like, here's why I like him, because he is very big into science. And they said, well, what if science proved everything you believe is wrong? He goes, I go with science. Imagine any other religious figure, the Pope saying that, any other religion, they would never say that. And then somebody said, well, you love being a Buddhist. You probably want everybody to be a Buddhist. He goes, no, when you go to a restaurant, Not everybody has the same meal. Whatever gets you full to wherever you want to be or should be, I'm happy for you. And I said, I love that because they're so open minded. I went to the church and there was something way in the back. And halfway through, he goes, I really hate to bring this up, but if you want to donate, I'm not gonna say no because this really helps us keep the service going through the winter. It helps keep the heat going. But I really don't expect anybody. I grew up Protestant. I went to a Catholic church, and this is the funniest thing. I thought they were kidding. We went to a Catholic church as a sort of a field trip to see what other religions were like. They passed the plate around. They went back and they said, "Yeah, we didn't get enough money. We're going to pass it around again." I started laughing. I said,
What?
"Oh, you're serious?" So there's
Wow. Yeah, that's really like, especially that kind of stuff I don't like about the churches that we
yeah,
didn't get enough money. You didn't get enough money. God hates you and he wants your money.
yeah, exactly.
Like that's what they make it feel like, and then that just shouldn't be it. See, I when I was a kid, actually we went to a lot of Baptist churches.
Hmm.
We went to we were a white family, and but my stepdad would bring us to Baptist churches with just all black people, and the first couple times, it was nerve wracking as a little kid. It's like you have those things where it's like all these people are different. Not that I didn't dislike them because of their race or whatever, but you notice that you're in a different kind of culture thing. They were all so welcoming and so full of life and energy.
Yeah.
Like it was like, have you seen the Blues Brothers? You've
Yes,
seen
James
it's
Brown.
yes, it honestly it was just like that. And like I love the fact that they incorporated so much music into it. People were having the Holy Ghost and seizing, and it was just incredible to see that kind of culture, um and how they mix that with their faith, music and theatrics, and I was like, this is incredible, and I really loved that stuff, and they didn't, like, the preachers and stuff, they didn't preach much about you shouldn't be doing this, blah blah blah, you shouldn't be doing that. It was a whole lot of like love,
Mhm.
and that's what I try to get from the Bible nowadays, because as much as like when I was younger, I was against it. I would burn pages out of it, and I would roll pages with weed and smoke them. As it's just like a little fu to the
Yeah,
system and stuff like that. But now I now going back and trying to, because regardless what people think, it's the first ever story. It was like kind of the first ever book, the greatest story ever told kind of thing.
mhm.
And so there's something about that, and I love the language. I love the
Yeah, yeah,
thou shalt. I there's I notice it's not all the way through the story that I wrote, but when I first started writing it, that was a lot of the kind of language that I used, because the person that I wrote about is coming, well, it's like in like the late 1800s to like the early 1900s, around then. So it's kind of like me, my character is like a person out of time, a person lost in time, where he's not necessarily in the era that he would want to be. Or, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the great things that we have and stuff, but I miss the art, and I feel like maybe I could have been something different in a different time, a philosopher, poet. I mean, I am in this time, so
yeah.
I guess I live in the past. I
Yep.
forgot what the word is, but it's like there's a word for nostalgia for a time period that you never lived in.
Yeah, yeah. No,
That's
wow, my mind went blank on that too. But I'll get to that word when I think of it. But so do you believe in reincarnation?
um I think it's definitely a possibility. I don't really know. I go back and forth from being like there's nothing at the end, or they're maybe we're all just ghosts. Maybe like our because in science, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So no
Mhm.
matter what, will always exist in some form, even if it's just our energy. So maybe it could just be that. Maybe it's a kind of. I like to believe that it's a heaven-esque thing where you go with people that you've loved in your life that have also passed or
Yeah.
stuff because I've heard people close to me that have had people pass and those people as they're passing say things that are eerie about about seeing people that are gone and stuff. They're on their deathbed and being like, I see them, it's going to be okay. I'm here with so and so, and it's so it's
Yeah.
I really hope that's it, you know,
Yeah.
because there's so many people that I don't ever want to be, you know, I don't ever want to never see again or, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And the word is deja vu you're thinking of.
yes. Yep.
Deja vu. Okay. So I love to read books on all types of things, all types of subjects. I just like to learn. And I did read a
Mhm.
book years ago on reincarnation. And if you believe in it, there's a lot of things. They always say that a lot of the same souls stick together throughout different lifetimes. An example would be like, in this lifetime we're friends. Maybe in another lifetime we'll be brothers. Maybe in another lifetime we'll be cousins. There's always different same spirits but different bodies and different connections to that spirit. And there was one
Yeah.
example. They said this is every up to speculation if you want to believe it. This is just what I read. There was one soul that said he was going to always watch out for his friend in the next life. So every day the friend was a say he was a banker. I'm not sure exactly what he was. He had a high profile job. He was on Wall Street. He's always going to work, and every day he would see a homeless guy just sitting on the side of the road, and then he would give him some food and go to work. And the next day, be there, he'd give him some more food. And according to the story I read, that was his friend looking out for him in the next life. He was the homeless guy, and his friend was the one that worked on Wall Street. So things like that. If you do believe in that, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine as well. But I think we're never going to know for sure. I think there's definitely something to it, and it's definitely a
Yeah.
possibility that reincarnation could exist.
Exactly. I mean,
Could be a
especially if
thing.
if energy is, if energy cannot be created or destroyed, then you could it could be recycled.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that's probably what it is. People that have unfinished business and are like I like to think that it's probably not just one thing. It's probably like you could possibly be reincarnated, or you could be a ghost, or you could rest in peace, and it's like I just don't know, and none of us do. We get hints and tiny little glimpses, but not nearly enough throughout the whole human experience to say for sure
Yeah.
this is what happens, and that's the stuff that really interests me
Well,
because
that's why I love talking to you because you are one of the nicest, most open-minded people I know. One of my and I'll tell you why I'm saying this because I can't stand when the people say, "No, your religion is wrong, my religion is right. You don't know what you're talking about." Everything I say, well, how the hell do you know? You don't. Nobody knows. So I love the fact that just like me, you're very open-minded. You're open to different suggestions. You're like, hey, it could happen, maybe not. We'll never know. So I am just like you, and that's why I love to read so many different things. And Stephen Hawking, which did you ever see the movie Donnie Darko?
yes,
All
love
right, so
Donnie Darko.
yeah, so obviously and I had to look it up because I thought it was part of the movie at first. This was years ago when it first came out. He really does believe in wormholes, and
Yep.
you can have the same person, but you're in a different part of the world, somewhere in different, not even the world, a different energy field. So you're somewhere else, and you're over here. You're playing basketball in some other dimension. You're over here doing a podcast, and I said, and this guy was extremely intelligent. It wasn't some crackhead on the side of the road spouting whatever he believed in. This guy was a teacher or whatever. He definitely knew what he was talking about. Like I read his book. It
Stephen
was funny
Hawking.
because what was that?
Are you talking about Stephen Hawking, or are you
Yeah, yeah.
talking about? Oh
Yep.
yeah, yeah. And he
Guy's a
was
genius.
yeah, genius. Yep, he was like
And
Einstein level
yeah,
intelligence. Tesla, like
exactly.
just
Well, that's another
yeah,
whole story. We can talk about Nikolai Tesla and how
yeah,
Thomas Edison ripped him off, but that's another.
yeah, right, yeah.
This is going down. Speaking of
Thomas
wormholes,
Edison and GE. Yeah, right.
yeah, no, but I want to talk about Stephen Hawking because it's funny because I read after I saw Die in Dark Horse, I wanted to read his book, and I'm reading it, and he said my students told me that the books were too intricate and too hard to understand, so I sort of dumbed it down. And I'm laughing because I said, "Oh, this is the dumbed down version." And the best part is the guy wasn't trying to be like so. It didn't come across as like so. I'm so intelligent, and you can't understand what I'm saying. That's just how he talked normally and how he thought, and it's just the guy was a genius. And that's why when I hear somebody like him say things like that, like maybe there is something to these wormholes and different dimensions and different lifetimes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Einstein might have said something
Yeah.
like that too, where I know like that's one of my favorites. I love the ideas of different dimensions and different, they call it the many worlds theories. There's an infinities of everything. Like every decision that you make in a day, there's a like breaks off another universe where you make the opposite decision.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another universe where we didn't do this in.
Yeah. It's called
I'm glad
quantum
we're.
physics.
Yep, I love quantum physics.
There's a documentary, and that's why I was just looking up because I couldn't remember the name. It's called "What the Bleep Do We Know?" It's
Yep,
all
I
about that.
love that. Yep, my favorite. Like one of the things, especially in that, like that really opened my curiosity for the unknown. I think it was. I think electrons when they were testing to see how electrons react and how they flow through stuff, and then they accidentally kind of discovered that those electrons act differently when they're being watched versus not being watched, where it's like how like, and that's at the quantum level. That is just, and things that make up us, which actually I've heard, like, so that theory about how electrons and stuff act differently when you're looking at them. I was watching a video actually just before we started doing this about a guy made a video about the simulation theory,
Mhm.
and he made a metaphor or allegory about video games and how in video games there's like a field of view thing that when you're looking at a certain area, when you're turning and stuff, the world is being built in front of you,
Mhm.
so it saves space on the disk, and your system's not working as hard to keep the whole world going all at once. It kind of it lowers the resolution of things that aren't in your field of view. So, and he was like, that could kind of explain a little bit of like how electrons work differently when you're looking at them or not, because then how do you know like I remember hearing like you're looking at something, but stuff behind you see in front of you, but if nobody's looking at anything, like if nobody, like I can see behind me now because I have the camera and
Yeah.
stuff, but if it wouldn't be, would that even exist? You know, it's all just forming around you and your little retinas here going up through your brain being filtered. We're only seeing what our brain wants us to see, what our brain can handle,
Yeah.
you know, and we can only see a certain amount of, we can only see a percentage of what's actually in front of us. So there's, who knows, you know, who knows what's out there, who knows what's going on, you know.
Yeah. And the other thing is, am I seeing exactly what you see? It
Exactly.
could be
How do we know?
completely not completely different, but it could be different
Yep,
variations.
the color
And
red. How do I know that? I mean, I see it as what, like I see it red, but how
yeah,
do you, it could look blue or just a whole different
yeah,
color that you've never seen or I've never seen, you know. That's what,
and
yeah, it's stuff like that. That's,
yeah,
yep.
that's definitely one rabbit hole I don't mind jumping down because it's so
No.
interesting and there's so many
Mm-hmm.
possibilities. And And I said, that's why I love talking to somebody like you who's open to all this and saying, you know what, we're never going to know.
Yeah, I mean, I the fun is in not knowing. You
Mhm.
know, like when it's like when you got a movie or a game or something that's coming out, like you're never as excited once you beat it or watch it than you were before you see it, you know, and God forbid it's just disappointing or whatever, you know, and then that's the thing. It's somebody might know, the people that have passed on might know, or different civilizations far and deep space. I mean, who knows? I mean, and you know, we can zoom in a lot, you know, like in scientific, we have microscopes and all this thing, but maybe one day we can learn to zoom out and see what we are actually molecules of, you know, that would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
interesting because, I mean, and we can only zoom in so far. Like, how do we know that I mean, there's probably
Hmm.
bacteria, you know, like there
Yeah.
are universes in themselves. It's,
Well, I mean, perfect example is the more technology we get, the more we find out. An example would be they show all those bugs that are on our body all day, every day. And that wasn't until maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that people realized, like, oh my God, your body's covered in bugs, and but they're healthy. They're not doing anything
yeah,
to you, but it's just so that you, as you
we're
said, the more you zoom
ecosystems.
in, the more technology we have, the more we can see, the more we can find out. And
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
we're we're walking universes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we're filled with I remember hearing, I think it was, there's more bacteria in our gut than there are stars in the sky.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's why I take my probiotics.
Yep, yeah, me too. Yep.
All right. So now that we're on this subject, let's go to outer space. What's your what's your theory on aliens?
Hmm. I I want to I want to say that they're out there.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, what I mean, they're definitely. I could probably say with a lot of certainty that there is something, whether it's even bacteria or something, you know, on some moon, Venus moon, or light years away. I want to say that because that they're, you know, we don't know how big the universe is, and it could be. They say it's constantly growing and stuff, and if it's just endless, then of course, I mean, you know, we can't. We're not that special. We can't be the only ones, you know. Like we,
Thank you.
as humans, we like to think that we are because we can get
Yeah.
on our Twitter and stuff, you know, and think that we're these, you
Highly
know,
evolved.
so important. Ooh,
Yeah.
like zoom out. You think you're important? Zoom out. You know, and
I know.
I
I
mean,
love that. I always said the same thing too. I said for us to think that we're so self-centered to think that we're the only life forms in this vast galaxy of
mm-hmm,
planets and star systems. And one of my favorite UFO stories was did you ever hear of Betty and Barney Hill?
yep,
All right. So the
yeah, it's a
reason I
great
bring that
story.
up is this couple that was picked
One
up
of
by
the best.
aliens supposedly. And what happened was this was back in the 60s, I think it was.
Mm-hmm,
And she drew a picture of where she was. And they're like, that doesn't exist. What are you talking about? It wasn't until years later when technology came out, they're like, oh, we found this planet. She drew it under hypnotism while she was hypnotized, and then when she woke up, she goes, "This is what I have." And they said, "No, there's no proof of that. This doesn't exist. This is gibberish." And it wasn't until maybe like 20 years later when they said, "Oh, there it is," because they had the proper technology. So then, would she just dream that up and just a weird coincidence?
yeah, and like, you know, there's a lot of documented
Oh
cases
yeah,
like that. I mean, that is one of the best because it's it's undisputed and it's been researched so much, you know, and especially for the time because they were in an interracial couple,
yeah,
couple,
Yes.
So it's like them coming out to talk about this stuff, especially back then, is not, you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, not saying that that's cool or whatever, that you kind of didn't want to be,
In the
that it
spotlight.
wasn't accepted as much, because I don't know, color is just, I don't, that kind of stuff is, it doesn't never matter to me,
Oh, exactly.
you
No, but I
know.
know exactly what you're saying. At that time, it was a lot different than it is today, and they put themselves on the line to be the center of attention, and they really didn't have to do that. And there's another thing that they predicted, and they told her when Barney was going to die, and he died right around that same time that they said he was going to die. There's so many things. That's just one example.
Yeah,
I've
yep, I have the Wikipedia up now. I said he died on February 25th, 1969. And it
Wow.
was the Zeta Reticuli, the system that she drew, which is funny because I remember Bob Lazar mentioned Zeta Reticuli. I believe when he worked at I think it was S4. I think he said 25 or 50 miles away from Area 51,
Mhm.
where he was working on UFO spaceships. That they told him that one of the ships that he was working on was from Zeta Reticuli. Yeah, it's unfortunately you do have a lot of people that either misconstrue sightings or that
Mhm.
are mentally ill, and and or just straight up lie, write stories and stuff like
Yeah.
that's. But I do believe I do believe that there's something out there. I'm not sure if they still visit us or whatever. It's like it's one of those things where it's I have a feeling, but there's information missing.
Yeah.
It's like trying to figure it out, like ancient aliens. It's like if they were so involved in humanity back then, why aren't they now?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
I can understand actually thinking that like a lot of the things that happened to people that were maybe could have been misconstrued as religious experiences and stuff could have been, ancient aliens. Cue
Yeah.
the meme, cue
Yeah.
aliens.
Well, I got to tell you
I
a
like
funny
how,
story. Years ago, I worked as a telemarketer when I got out of high school, and there was a woman that said she was on her way to the beach and she got picked up by aliens, and she was telling my boss this. Unfortunately, I didn't work with her. She quit before I started, but she said they put a chip in her and they were watching her. And my boss said every single day at 1 p.m. there would be a black helicopter that flew over the building regardless of the day, regardless of, it was exactly the same time every day. Right after she
black.
quit, no more helicopters.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's stuff like that, man. It's stuff like that. It's like you can't explain that.
Hmm.
Like it could have been a coincidence, but
Yeah.
there's stuff like that have happened. People get abducted and then chips implanted in them, and then governments are also guilty of faking things too. I remember in some book, I forgot what it was. Her name was Anne something. She was on the Joe Rogan podcast, but she was saying how I think it was the Soviet government took like kids and like mutilated their bodies to make them look like extraterrestrials and then put them in this flying saucer type looking craft and then crashed them somewhere to like to throw off other world governments and stuff. And I'm
Hmm.
like, it's oh, sometimes when you think about the things that happen in the world and what could be possible and stuff, it's stuff like that where it's like it's hard to get a correct answer
Yeah.
or an answer at all because you got people that would not think twice about faking something, and
Yeah. Well, that plus also, unfortunately, I think the craziest people get the largest platform. Meaning, like sometimes I
Yeah.
think some people will say things just because they love being their 15 minutes of fame. And one example of this is, and I completely think it's BS, was that when they say the government faked the moon landing. I don't think there's
Oh yeah.
any proof of that. I can't stand when people say, "Oh, the moon landing was faked." No, it wasn't. We were
Fake
there.
fly.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just bringing that up to say, like, you get these people that get this platform, and they'll just give the wildest story because they want to
Yeah.
their 15 minutes of fame. But also, it's like every horror movie, you get the one guy, don't go in those woods. There's a lot of
Yep.
killers. This
You don't
guy's
want to go
crazy.
down
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Every time, every
They're
crazy
all
guy in the
gonna
beginning of a horror movie is the only one that knows what's really going on.
exactly. And that's what I aspire to be, really. I tell Ashley, like, I see those guys in movies all the time, and I'm like, that's me right there. I'm like, like there's an episode of the Twilight Zone called Still Valley where there's it's it's in the Civil War, and you're following some some Confederate soldiers, and they run into this old guy who has like he's like a Satan worshiper, and he has this a book of black magic, and they can end the war and um, make it so the Confederacy wins, basically takes control of the Union Army and everything, and it's kind of I like it because not it doesn't overtly make Confederate the Confederacy look and like just evil, just blanket Nazis, evil, because they really want to win, and they're so close to doing it. But the one thing is that in the book it says they have to forfeit their souls to Satan, and they just refuse to do it, and they burn the book, and obviously you know how the Civil War ends, but I love that.
Yeah.
I was like that's interesting because I mean obviously not I don't have good views on the Confederacy or anything, and you know, I also don't believe that it was just to keep slavery, fighting for the Confederacy. I think there was more to that. I know
Yeah.
that was a big part of it, and of course, but those were people just like you know, anybody who gets involved in some kind of dogma. It's really, it's really unfortunate, and like people that are racist and stuff, and I, it's I I pity them, and I pity them in a way where that they're so closed off to
Yeah, exactly.
the great things that other cultures
Mhm.
can offer, and and just being having a brotherhood of man. You know, that's what I think it really should be about. People are too separated now. People are too, um,
Polarized.
yes,
Wait,
polarized.
you know what? One of my favorite quotes is from our buddy Mark Dawidziak's good old friend Mark Twain, because I might not be saying it verbatim, but it's travel is fatal to prejudice, and it's great because
Hmm.
the more you get out in the world, the more you see how great people are in all different cultures. You realize like we're all pretty much the same. We all have the same wants, the same needs, and unfortunately, the people that are so closed off, like you mentioned, think that, oh, they're bad, I'm going to stay in here where it's safe. You don't realize, like when people say, and I get mad when people say, it's like, oh, America's the best country in the world. It's like, how do you know that? You never went anywhere else. We're a great country, and we definitely have our faults like every other country. But
Yes.
people that just sit there like, and if they can't see it from their back window, it doesn't exist. Those are the
Yeah.
people. It's like I feel bad for, because, like you said, they're missing out on so much great music, so
Yeah.
much great movies, so much great culture, just life in general.
So
They're
much.
living a
Yeah.
boring, routine
Hmm.
life, and it's just they don't realize. Like for me,
Sterilized.
yeah, exactly. For me, I love to get out and do as much as I can. I like to experience as much as I can. I would love to travel a lot more, but I get to do that every so often. And even just going to different places like Sterling Fest, where I met you, and I'm going to you and we talked about this. You're going with your wife. I'm going with my wife to Bermuda. So it's just
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so
We're
many. And
excited
I
for
went to
that.
Transylvania, went to Romania. That was a great trip.
That's awesome.
because
That's so cool.
my two favorite things are horror movies and history, and I love the history of
Hmm.
Vlad the
Yeah.
Impaler, Vlad Tepes, and
Me
then of
too,
course
man.
Dracula. So it
Hmm.
was a great mixture of both. I got to sleep, and actually, probably haven't really slept. I just partied all night in Dracula's castle in Romania, Vlad's real castle. It's just a beautiful country, and
Yeah,
the
I wouldn't have
people couldn't have
slept
been
either.
nicer. The gypsies were great. There were so many gypsies roaming around. So if I didn't go in that experience, I would never know how great it was on that side of the world.
Yeah, I would love like my number one place I would want to go to is Egypt to
Yes.
see the pyramids and I just feel like a crazy connection to to uh the kind of mysticism and gods and stuff of their time. Like there's reoccurring things in my writing, and it's usually it's Egypt, um, UFOs, like anything extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just kind of like those unknown, the unknown. I really love. I could stay in the unknown forever. You know,
Yeah.
because once something is known, then it's just known. It's common knowledge. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing to build. I mean, you can build upon that, but it's not like
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like.
I the you brought up a great point. 'Cause I did
Mhm.
actually book a trip to Egypt back in 2006, or after I came back from, but I didn't have a chance to go. I'm kind of afraid now because of I don't know like what's going on that side of the world with the bombings and terrorism and things like
Yeah.
that. Even though some people tell me like, oh no, it's nothing like you see on TV, which I believe that, but I
Yeah,
still
no,
don't want
but
to
you
be
should
over
be
there.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But I know, I mean, it's just amazing. I went to a King Tut exhibit in New York, which was great, so fascinating. And I also went to actually both of them were in New York. One was just exclusively King Tut. The other one was all about Egyptology, and the quality of the things they made way better than anything that we have now. I mean, there was stuff from King Tut's era, like a chair. I said, this thing is way nicer than I've seen. And it's
oh,
like how many years old? So just, I love that part of history. And just look at behind you, that those pyramids. It's just
yeah. Yep.
amazing that with the technology that they had back then, that they were able to make something so great.
Exactly. And I mean like and the fact that there's no documents on how it was made or anything, it raises the question that like did they make them? You
Yeah.
know? I mean, most likely they did, of
Yeah.
course. And you can go the the uh scholarly route of being,
Yeah.
they had slaves that used uh logs to
Mhm.
pull these limestones thousands of miles away, but it's even that still doesn't it still doesn't explain everything.
Mhm.
You know, like Egyptians actually discovered the Sphinx.
Mhm.
It was King Tut's grandfather. He was
Yep.
walking through the desert, and I think I think actually what I was about to say was actually how King Tut's tomb was discovered, but I know for a fact that King Tut's grandfather discovered the Sphinx and had it um, excavated and pulled out, and and the weird fact that around that time it was more foliage and stuff, but there was still like a hell of a lot of sand or whatever. But there was water all around it. There's like there was running water for years,
Yeah.
like water, not necessarily water damage, but you know how like water goes like in the Grand Canyon and stuff. You can see where with like the marks that water leaves. I forgot
Yep.
what the exact term is, but and it's like
Yep.
I was like really I was like the Egyptians discovered the Sphinx. I was like, well, who built it? And nobody knows.
I
And
know. No, it's
they're still
amazing. And
discovering they're still discovering things at the Great Pyramid. You know,
Yeah.
they just found a big capsule in the center that for somehow there's a lot of fire damage
Hmm.
inside of it, almost like there was explosions. So people are thinking, scientists are thinking that it was actually a form of energy that eventually was destroyed. Like the pyramids were actually power plants
Mm.
for energy, and I think in that same one, I think actually I was watching a Nikola Tesla thing that they had brought that up, where how
Oh,
he had discovered like free energy, like Wi-Fi. Energy flowed through the air, and it would have been free and safe and stuff. And he tried to sell it to the guy who created GE, and that guy was like, "What are you doing? That's gonna destroy my business." And so he partnered up with Thomas Edison,
uh,
gave Thomas Edison all his funding and all this stuff, and then and then blacklisted Nikola Tesla,
oh yeah. That's
and
Yeah, no,
it's
that
awful.
Nick, I felt so bad because I saw a documentary on Tesla, and they said he just died crazy and penniless. He's basically just sitting on a park bench talking to the birds. I mean, he
Yeah,
did so much. He was so intelligent, and yeah, luckily, I'm so glad that history is proving and exposing what a genius he was, and the fact that Thomas Edison was just a hack.
yeah. His patents for free energy are just missing.
Yep.
They went missing after he died, and we'll we'll never see it. It's
Yeah.
all about money for whoever is running stuff. They can't have it.
Yeah.
And it's just sad, really. And yeah, I do like stories like that really attract me too, like Howard Hughes as well.
Oh yeah.
I love,
I
yeah,
read several books on him, and that movie was great with Leonardo DiCaprio.
yeah, yep,
But he did a lot too. I mean, the movie was called The Aviator. It was only about that one part of his life. He did so
yeah,
much more. But unfortunately, he's another one that he had a severe case of OCD, and he cut himself off from everybody, and he just
yep,
he just died, alone and sad. But
yeah.
I mean,
And like for real, like he had I think he had an autopsy, and like the things that they found, like he was not being taken care of either. Like he had needles broken off inside of him and stuff
ugh,
because he was on so much pain medication and stuff because of the crashes he was in.
yeah.
He was in a couple bad crashes where he should have died.
Hmm.
Like the one crash in the movie where he crashes into the house and stuff. Like the movie didn't do how messed up physically he really was
Yeah, yeah.
like justice. I mean, like he wasn't like permanent. Like he had like I think it was most of his body, but his face was good, so you wouldn't really notice. But he had burns like most of his body. Like he wasn't expected to survive, and he was a fighter like that.
Oh, yeah.
I
It
like
was
that about those guys. They're like, I'm not gonna lose, or I'm gonna do what I gotta do to either make it or even stay alive or whatever. I love that.
Yeah, no, me too. I love reading books on people, human endurance. Actually, speaking of that, I just finished a book about the ship was called the Endurance, and they were shipwrecked. They were trying to cross the Antarctic, and it's just I mean, try and survive in the middle of Antarctica with barely any kind of clothing that was dry, just no food, stuck in the ice. And just so when people say like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I have
cannibalism.
it so
Did
tough,"
they have
or "I really can't survive without this," your body can do a lot more than
right?
you
What am
think
I
it can
gonna do
do.
without my mocha latte?
Exactly. How am I ever going to survive without my Starbucks? The human body is amazing, and it can be put through so much and survive so much if you really had to. I mean, I wouldn't go out seeking that, but I love hearing stories about people that, as you
It's
mentioned,
yeah,
go the
it's
distance, do whatever it
yeah,
takes, and just And
It,
Howard Hughes, so I haven't read that book probably about 15, 16 years. So I don't remember a lot of it, but I just remember him like it was RKO. He bought that movie studio and
yeah,
all
yep.
the planes.
He,
I mean,
all
so
the
there's,
yeah, he was a director.
yep,
Yeah, he owned a movie company. He had all this crazy stuff.
yeah.
And then eventually his OCD got so out of hand that he disappeared.
Hmm.
Do you ever play video games?
Not really. What's funny because as I'm, you know this, but I'll mention to my viewers, I have cerebral palsy. No, but the reason I bring that up was
Oh, sorry.
no.
Sorry.
I'm actually glad, and I'll tell you what I mean. Because in the '80s, Atari had like the one joystick and the red button. I was
Yep.
kicking ass on that. I was killing Space Invaders, jumping like a crazy Frogger. Uh,
Hell yeah,
Little
yeah. And then
Mario.
yeah,
Yeah,
now it's like there's not enough buttons on a controller. It's like,
exactly. So then Nintendo came out, and you need 3 hands, 2 feet, 18 fingers, and trying to go. So but I'm glad because I was probably like maybe like 13 or 14 when those came out. So I'm glad I never got sucked into the video game world where I know people
yeah,
that's all they do. I mean,
yeah,
like my brother, he's a airline pilot. He was a fighter pilot, so he has a life, but he enjoys playing video games, and that's fine.
yeah,
But he doesn't make it his life. I've seen so many people that just like, no,
exactly.
I gotta get.
You need
It's
a
like 4 o'clock
balance.
in the morning. No, I gotta win. I can't stop now.
Yeah, and it's like I've been there, and well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, but there has to be a balance, you know.
Exactly.
There
Well, that's the
definitely
point
has
I'm
to be.
making. But you have a
Yeah,
you
it's
have a
like
great balance. I mean, I mentioned in the intro, poet, writer, sound engineer, and producer. So obviously, you're not playing video games all day.
no, no, definitely not. I mean,
Good for
some
you.
days, some like me and my wife like to play Call of Duty together, but
Oh yeah,
yeah, it goes like too long. Like if I'm just playing too much, like I have this thing like once I if I get really good at a game, I start to get anxious and almost antsy because I know I haven't done anything productive.
yeah,
You know, but it's like I really do like the challenges. Like I love pinball. There's a couple pinball games that we play uh and oh yeah, and um and there's this one game that I really love. It's called Fallout. Um,
hmm
Fallout. There's multiple versions of the game, but the one Fallout New Vegas has this character in it called Mr. House, and it's basically Howard Hughes.
uh,
So it's like if Howard Hughes had if there was a nuclear war around the time he was around, he'd like he he has like he bought a casino like the guy in the game. He bought he bought a casino and he like shut it down and he has like this spoilers. Uh, he's like alive. You you're not really sure at first. You go in this place and you're talking to a computer of this guy who like looks like a fancy aristocrat from like that time, and it's like, oh, okay. And then you find out you go into like the basement or some kind of thing, and there's this big capsule like contraption that's keeping him alive, and you can make like a choice to open it. If you open it, you kill him because he's been, I think it's like hundreds of years that he's been there. He's had this life saving respirators and stuff like that. But when you look inside, it looks like how they explained Howard Hughes looked when he passed. Like
yeah,
his hair was all long and his fingernails
yeah,
were, long as heck and stuff. And I really like that. I liked when people can take stuff like that in real life and turn it into something like a different kind of story with a different kind of outcome and another universe kind of thing. And I really like that. That's probably one of my favorite stories in that whole game series is the Mr. House story.
Well, there was a couple times I was watching a commercial. I thought it was a new movie coming out. They were actually commercials for video games. They're so high tech now. And I want to give a couple examples of video games I never played, but I love, and I'll tell you why. I interviewed several people from the movie The Warriors, and they were
Yep.
saying that what brought the movie back into popularity was the video game. The video game
I
came out,
love
and all of a
that
sudden people were
video
like,
game.
"Oh, what's this?" And then it made the movie
Yep.
popular. And I interviewed Adrienne Barbeau, and
Mhm.
she was saying she does lots of voice. She makes a lot of money doing voices on video games, and it was so funny because she is. If you listen, if I don't know if you listened to that interview yet, but she is such a nice person. She's so low key, and she goes, "They told me just go out, say the meanest, dirtiest, nastiest things." She goes, "I felt so uncomfortable," and she's laughing. She goes, "Why is that the one game you had to bring up?" And she was like, "But I love the fact." Another example why I love video games. Somebody I know said, "Rich, you got to see this band. They're from Mongolia. They're called Who? HU." And I said, "Oh, these guys are great." She let me. I downloaded them. Streamed it. Went to go see them in concert in Connecticut. And I said, "Where? How'd you ever hear about these guys?" She goes, "Oh, they're featured on my video game that I play." So the fact that like you can,
Really?
yeah, it's called HU, pronounced Who, Mongolian
That's
rock band.
crazy.
They started off, they weren't a Metallica tribute band, but one of their favorite bands is Metallica. They do like their version of Enter Sandman, but they do so their originals are great. And I thought there's a iconic club in Connecticut called Toad's Place where I live, and Rolling Stones played there, Bruce Springsteen played there. I mean, all these bands that are icons now
Yeah.
got their start in this club, and they played there. And I said, "Well, I'm probably gonna be the only one there." The place was jam packed; I couldn't even move. I was so happy to see them, and I tried to get a picture with them, and I saw them outside, but they said it was in the middle of COVID, and they were a little worried. And I said, "No problem, no problem." But
Yeah.
even well, they weren't. They said my manager will probably get. I don't want to get in trouble. I said I don't want you to get in trouble either. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I got a chance to talk to them for a little bit, and I would love to have had them on the show, but yeah, I think there would have been a little bit of a language barrier asking them the questions.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
were they are a phenomenal band. I recommend that to all my viewers. But the reason I bring that up was that I found out about them through a video game. So I don't play them because it's tougher for me with my cerebral palsy, but I do enjoy them, and I think that it gave some of my favorite movies a second life.
Yeah. I actually really love the Warriors video game. It's such a good game.
Yep.
Like I actually just bought it again recently, and unfortunately, the way that they brought it over to the current system now, it's all buggy and glitchy and stuff. But I remember playing that so much. And it's made by Rockstar, the same people that make Grand Theft Auto and
Mhm.
the Red Dead Redemption games. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a great game. That's so cool. That's so cool that she voiced uh, somebody from that because I really love that game. Like, yeah, you can just do awful things. You find just random people on the street and beat them with metal bars and stuff and take their money and that kind of stuff. It was great, you know. Um, not that I would do that in real life. I'm not. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that do that stuff in real life, but you know,
Well, see, I'm
you're
glad you
playing a
brought that up
character.
because this is what gets. I think that video games are fun, and you can get your frustrations out, things you would never think of doing. And I get mad when, and it's sad when even one person does it, but some person does it, and they said they were influenced by the game. It's like that to me that really
You had
shouldn't
something.
have anything to do with the game because I think it's more with the person or maybe the
Yeah.
person's parents who really weren't there
Hmm.
for them because 99.9% of people play it. They know it's fake. It's just fun. It's kind of a release for them. And then you get one kid that does something so heinous and so stupid that they're going to ban all these video games. No, don't ban
Yeah.
the video
No,
games. It's
they had something inside them that was
yeah,
already corrupted. You
exactly.
know, I really don't believe that. You know, it's like I don't know. You never see some. I don't know. It's like you don't. Why don't video games make you do other things? You know,
Hmm.
besides just hurt people. Like, why don't you go out and try to like put Tetris blocks in the middle of the road? And you know what I mean?
No,
It's just,
exactly.
it's the same kind of thing with music.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
when people try to blame music and stuff for the things that people do, like you know, and especially like in the '80s with the Satanic
yeah,
Panic and all that, and
yeah.
I mean even before then, you know, like Led Zeppelin and stuff, and um, yeah, I just that stuff I believe is already in somebody, and maybe they might I want to word this correctly. They might get ideas or whatever, but they something was already rotten inside them.
Exactly.
It's like you can, I mean, and it doesn't just have to be games or whatever. Like, that you have the like with the Columbine uh
Exactly.
uh shooters that they played Doom a lot and listened to Marilyn Manson. It's
No.
like no, it's like they were already corrupted. It's easy to be like, oh, this music and these games where you're going to hell and shooting demons, and it corrupts their spirit and it makes someone like, no, it
Yeah.
doesn't. I
I
mean,
can
either.
tell you, I can tell you with authority. I grew up watching movies like I Spit on Your Grave, Bloodsucking Freaks, Evil Dead, Phantasm, listening to music like Celtic Frost, Creator, King
Mhm.
Diamond. I grew up very well. I have a great life. Never once said, "Oh my God, I have urges to do this or do that." I know what's fake, what's real. I know nothing. I am not easily influenced. I am very well
Yeah.
adjusted, and it's so the fact that like it gets me mad when these poor people are put out of business because to me it's not even games or anything like that or music or movies. It's social media because social media, all these people that maybe were thinking these weird thoughts and they didn't want to say anything because they didn't want to act like they didn't want to seem like the crazy person. Now they go on social media and they realize that there's so many other people that think like them, talk like them, look like them, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not alone. And that gives them the power and it gives them the platform. And then
Hmm.
that's when they're going to do something because they want to be the media star. So to me, it's
Yeah, it's
not music, movies, or games. It's more social media that's making people. That's why I think we're seeing a lot more copycats, a lot more of things that we didn't see in the past.
going back, like going back to what you said earlier too. The parenting has a lot to do
Yes.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the way I was parented, I had two forms. I had a very loving, like my mother was very loving, and my stepfather was very harsh.
Mm-hmm.
And but I mean, you know, he was a he was a very corrupted guy as well, in the sense that he was the black sheep of his family, um, because he looked different, which turned out almost like a fictional story, like something that is just crazy. Like it turned out there was a reason why he looked different, and it wasn't because like his father was different or whatever. It was because that so his his siblings and him always thought that he was straight pure Italian. And it turned out that his dad took his mom from a place, I think in Puerto Rico or somewhere, and took her away from her family, started a new life in New York City, um, in the Bronx, and basically was just like, she's Italian, and my dad only found out miraculously, out of all the people that this happened to, it happened to him. And so and because of that, because he looked a little different,
Mm-hmm.
his dad treated him like garbage.
That's sad.
He was, and his dad used to chase him out of the house with knives and guns and just real bad stuff. And they were like well off. They weren't like, it wasn't like the drunk dad with the wife beater.
Yep.
Like it was. He was always, nothing he ever did was enough for his dad because he looked different. And he found that out when I think he was 35. His Somebody called the house asking for him, and it turns out that it was his aunt from Puerto Rico, his mom's sister. And so he found this out. She's calling him crying and saying that, like, you're my nephew, and your mom's my sister, and your father took her away from her family, and
Wow.
and that created a lot of tension and turmoil in his family because his dad didn't want he told his dad, and his dad told him, if you ever tell your mother, I'll disown you.
Wow.
And I think it might have even been Thanksgiving, and my stepdad told told his mom at the dinner table that day, and and that was tough. So, and and so that that passed over into the way that he
Oh
raised
yeah.
me, where I was a black sheep, and I had all these things wrong with me and stuff, and I used to be very resentful about that, but now, honestly, I wouldn't I wouldn't change it for the world, really, because it gave me something that I wouldn't have without the
Hmm.
that kind of trauma and stuff, and
Yeah.
realizing that, you know even though things can be, things were bad or whatever, I still see him. He actually watched the last episode of the podcast. I saw him on Christmas, and he was really proud, and
Oh, good.
of me and stuff, and which is funny because I don't really have to care to say it because I don't think my dad will watch this, but my dad doesn't. My real dad, who I have a relationship with as well, he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't acknowledge stuff that I do like this.
Mhm.
It's a very. I don't know if it seems like a jealousy thing or whatever, but
Yeah.
it like anything I do, music, not whatever. It's like he doesn't talk about it, and I've even heard that he hates it. He can't stand it, and you know, but he'll pretend a little bit. He'll talk about it a little bit, but it's no, like, I don't know. It's nothing like my mom or even my stepdad. Like he's I'm grateful for having the family that I did growing up now, and
Yeah.
something that I didn't. As a kid, you know you only see the surface of what's actually happening, and and if it's bad, you know you're mad and you're sad and stuff, and you wonder what's going on. But now, after knowing everything I know, like I said, I wouldn't change the change what I had at all.
Well,
I
you know
just
what? And I love that because you're breaking the cycle of what happened to the past with your stepdad, your father, and you're becoming your own person and you're not going through that same cycle. And that's why I get mad when I hear somebody say, "Oh, well, I didn't all the chips were against me. My parents were alcoholics." And stuff. But you know what? Stop using that as an excuse. You can easily be weak
yeah,
and say, "Oh, I'm an alcoholic because my mother drank when I was little." It's like, no, you're old enough to realize if you really want help, you can get the help you want. You can be strong as you want to be. Some people just use that as a crutch, as an excuse, so they don't, when they're like, well, I really didn't make anything out of my life because of this. Like, no, if you really want to, and that's why I have so much respect for you, because everything you've been through, and I probably don't even know half of it. Just talking to you, every time I talk to you, I learn something new. You impress me so much because you're so talented. You do so many different things, and the way you were brought up, you're such a great guy. So
thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And that's what I try to go for. Because I've been there. I've been, not, there was a time where I didn't have a talent or anything to go off of, and I didn't like that. Like I always felt lost. And and I mean, I pinpointed on something when I was young within music, and even that, like, people, you have the people that are just like, you're not gonna do it, with like my stepdad with the tough love, like, yeah,
yeah,
you're not gonna be that, and it pushed me a lot to be like, well, you know what, I'm gonna be one of the best at what I do,
exactly. No, I
you
love
know.
that. I have that same, but luckily for me, I grew up in a great household, very loving. Both parents were very supportive. My issue was, and I'm so glad it really isn't even an issue, but I mean, when I was born, as I mentioned probably last time we did the first interview, I was born with brain damage. They said I would never walk, never talk, and basically the whole left side of my brain is completely dead. So the left controls the right, right controls the left side for the most part. But it happened right when I was born, so the right side took over for the left. I was given the last rites 3 times, but I never let that stop me. And I mentioned over the years I've played baseball. Had the highest average in the league. I was in bands. I was in radio. I did stand-up comedy, did motivational speaking. I wrote a book. Now I'm doing this. So, I mean, it's never ever. And somebody says, why do you do all these things? I said, why not? I have a lot of different
Yeah,
interests.
man.
There's nothing stopping me. I'm not neglecting my responsibilities with work and other things. I'm just having a great time doing it. Why can't I do as much as I want? So I love that attitude. And I said, for me, it's a completely different reason why I'm doing this, but I just have that thing saying, go do it. We got to do more. We got to do more.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's incredible, man. I, yeah, I'm not sure if you mentioned that last time. That's, wow. That's, that's, I, and like you said, for me, like I have an incredible amount of respect for you too. Cause I remember telling Ashley, um, like I was like, I think he's like older.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, he's like 30s. I'm like, he was telling me he was in a band in the 80s. I and she's like, wow. And I was like, yeah, like it blew my mind too, because you have so much life to you, so much energy. Like you take life by the balls and you don't let go, and I really respect that about you. You're always doing something,
Oh yeah.
always,
Oh yeah.
and just the fact that, that it happened to you and you live with that you still don't let that. I mean, I got nothing on you, man. you know,
Yeah.
like I mean, but but that's the thing. It's not a competition either.
No,
You know.
and that's why I love the fact that that's why I love people. Um, I'm gonna say in the arts is maybe the wrong term, but people that have like different interests like us, because for the most part, they're very supportive of each other and what they do. There's not really a lot of competition. There's not a lot of jealousy. I mean, you're going to get people like that. But the fact, like, we're going to talk about how you're supporting my show in a little while. And I
Yes.
really do appreciate everything you've done for it. I want to get into that later. We'll end the show with that. But that's why, I mean, I like talking, because people who have interests like us, or it seem like they're a lot more open-minded. They have a lot more interest. You can talk to them pretty much about anything because they're interested in pretty much everything. And it's funny you said that, because very recently, a couple weeks ago, I did karaoke, and I was moshing around, singing and getting everybody to sing, and all these people were like, "Man, I wish I had your energy." I said, "You're 25 years old. I'm 54. You're half my age." And they were
Right. You got to
laughing.
get the energy. Yeah.
And then when I did comedy, one of the comedians got up on stage and said, "I do an impression of Rich, but I'd probably pass out due to exhaustion." I said, "You're 24 years old. I'm 50." So it is funny. I just always had that, because people used to always say, "Man, if we could just bottle your energy, I'd be a millionaire." I just always had that zest for life and always loved to
Yeah, I
have
was gonna
fun.
say, like, I think more than energy, it's a lust for life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lust for experience, you know?
Yeah. So that's funny that you and Ashley were talking about that, because I've just had that happen to me about a week and a half ago. Say,
Yeah,
"Man, I wish you had your energy."
yeah, because like the energy that you have is not, I don't know, it doesn't match, It doesn't match how old you are, or I mean, but I also believe that age is just a number.
Oh
I've met
yeah.
some younger people that are, you know,
Oh yeah. Well, I
yeah,
can
like,
give you examples after example, and I'll give you one more. I had a coworker, and he was saying, because I was telling him how I was going caving. I was doing I was in South Dakota, but it was like extreme caving. That's what it was called. So I went 200 feet under the ground. I was on a tour, and I went through it. And he was like, "Oh man, I wish I could do it." I said, "You're 22 years old. How can you not?" "Oh man, my body's aching. My leg." I said, "You're like an
yeah,
old man." And then I had another friend say, she's in her 30s, and she goes, "Yeah, I have a friend, but she's like older and she's, it's kind of boring. I said, wait, she's younger than me. She goes, no, I don't know where you came from, but you're not like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you're
it's
an
funny.
anomaly, you
Yeah.
know, which is I love anomalies, like I'm most attracted to like that, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff that just doesn't make sense, you
yeah.
know. But and that's the beauty of life. I mean, I don't think life makes sense,
Yeah, no, exactly.
It doesn't need to, just do it, just like I love seeing all your posts, like you're just living it up, man.
Oh yeah.
And then so the one day I saw that you were with uh um I forgot his name. It was Mystic Bowie. He
Oh
went to
yeah.
his show, and I was like, okay. I was like, I remember seeing you interviewed him, so I was like, I'll
Yep.
put that on there because I feel like it lined up. I was like,
Yep.
you had just seen him, and you had a interview from the past with him, so I was like, I'll put that up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm like, I always tell, I'm like, he's always doing something, and I love that. I
Oh
really
yeah.
do.
It's so hard to find. I mean, I always do. It's like the good thing is I know how to prioritize because I mean, I this was a great interview because I I probably I've only met you once in person, but I've talked to you many times. So like I really didn't even have to prepare for this interview. But like when I'm doing an interview for somebody like Mr. Bowie, who I don't know anything about, I'll spend maybe a week watching things, listening to things, reading things, trying to get as much. And what it always pays off because if you listen to every interview, they're like, wow, you made me think of things I completely forgot about.
Yes,
Wow, man, I love all
yes,
the great
yep,
questions, and that to
yeah,
me is the best compliment.
yeah, yeah. I
And
hear that a lot. I hear that a lot in your interviews, where it's like people are like, "Oh, wow, that's a deep cut," or "That's
yeah,
like, oh, what you did your research," and people are really like, and it brings them into it. I think it was the guy who played Jesus and Jesus Christ
Ted
Superstar,
Neely.
where at the end, yeah, he said like he's like hands down, this is the best interview I've
Yep.
ever
And Dee
had.
Wallace
And
said something similar. She
yep,
said,
yes,
because Rich, I've done 1,000 of these interviews. She goes, we really do appreciate the research you did. You put a lot, and that to me is it makes everything worthwhile for when I'm doing the show because I take pride in all the research I do. I take time and I take pride in the amount of time I put into it. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll be tired. I'm like, nope, I don't care. It's definitely worth it when I see the final outcome. And
yeah,
this is we'll talk about it now
yes,
because
yeah, no,
you
yeah, it makes sense, yeah,
I met you, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show about 2 hours ago. You were
yeah,
at Sterling Fest, and you said you're a musician, this and that. And I said, well, maybe I'd love to interview you for the show. So I
mm-hmm.
interviewed you for the show. We became friends, and then you said, Rich, I love the show. I want to make it as big as I can. I want to do whatever I can. I said, well, I really do appreciate it. And you said, I have an idea. Why don't we get it on Spotify, Audible, iTunes, and Amazon Music? I said, I would love that. He said, give me a couple days. I'll talk to you. Also, next thing you know, I see things popping up, interviews popping up on Spotify, Audible. Then you get back to me and said, hey, Rich, it's on iHeartRadio. I said,
Yeah,
this is great. So I don't even know. What would I consider you? Like, would it be producer? I mean, I don't even know, but you definitely have put this show on a completely different level. So I want to, first of all, before we stop right there, I want to thank you for everything. But I also got to thank the editor who puts this one together on YouTube, John Bristol of Elmwood Productions. You do a great job. And then the very beginning, when it started on radio, his name is Joseph Timothy Quirk. Thank you very much. All three of you are great. I'm so lucky to have such great friends like you three. And right now, I want to talk about what you've done because I've been trying to get this show on those platforms. That's, I mean, people like YouTube, people like the radio, but most people say, oh, are you on Spotify? Oh, are you on iTunes? Now I could say, yes, I am. So thank you.
yes, yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, and it was, I remember you saying, I think it was at Binghamton that you've had, trouble getting them on there, and people
Yeah.
telling you, well, this is what you do, and blah blah blah. And
Yes.
it's like, I mean, a guy like you that like does all the things that you do, it's like, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on, especially like just putting them all up on there, and I'm so happy that I really could help, because at the time when I had said like, oh yeah, I'll help you, I had no idea how to do it, but I found it out. I found it out, and I found out an easy way. Um, at least now, like I making all the accounts and stuff, that was tough. But and then I also wanted to make it so like you were involved too. So we made the joint email. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think so. I think so far, the other day I think I saw that there was like 101 downloads so
Oh,
far.
good.
So that,
Oh,
yeah. So yep.
wow.
And and if you want, I could give you the I'm gonna give you the password to the thing that I use. It's called Simplecast.
Yes, please.
Because it's all under it's all under your name, I believe, but only because it's like I'm not trying to do fraud or anything. But it's
Yeah.
like it's yours. So yeah. So
Right.
and it was very interesting. Like it was another avenue that I've never gone down. Like I know how to upload music and stuff like that, and YouTube and stuff. So it was very interesting to see how that worked, and and I made up the thumbnail or the thing that like the
Mhm.
picture that says the
Yeah.
Claws Corner, and I don't know if you caught I don't know if you caught it, but the thing that says on air, um, the
Oh,
little
yeah.
red thing that's below it,
Yeah.
that's a HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space
No,
Odyssey.
wow. I did not get that. Now I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about, but that's funny.
yep.
I did not realize that. But yeah, no, I love and people that are watching this right now, go on to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Hit follow, rate the show, give a give a rating, give a review, please. Just and spread the
Share.
word
Yep.
that the Claws Corner. It's the Claws Corner with Rich Sayre. And there it is in the background. Thank you very much for that. I see a couple of the
Oh,
things in the back. Oh no, that's never
oh
mind.
no,
Those are
actually, yeah, I think my YouTube thing timed out. I picked like
oh
4K Egypt videos and just paused it on the main thing, but I guess it timed
oh okay.
out. Now
Yeah, but so yeah, I'm not in those
a
things
word from our
yet.
sponsors. No. Oh yeah, but you can also see
I'm working on that next. I'm going to be on Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV. But for now,
Discovery Plus. You can see the background to my Roku is actually Star Trek Next Generation. Um, the Enterprise from that. Turn it off for now.
oh yeah, no, I'm
But
a huge
yes,
fan.
yep. Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of the original Star Trek. I didn't really get
And
into the newer ones.
I would say probably give me a couple months to have the full catalog uploaded. I think there's 20 or 21 now so far,
Oh yeah,
and like they're like the heavy hitting ones,
yeah.
D Wallace and uh
You did Ted Neely, then David
Ted.
Harrison, Apache
Yeah,
Ramos from the Warriors, Adrian
yes, that was a
Barbeau.
really good one too. The Apache Ramos.
Yeah, like,
Um,
that
him
guy's
talking.
hilarious.
He's great. I really like the one part he was talking about how with with like the AIDS and stuff, like
Yeah,
how that because he lived in the city, and it was very much like that around that time where
yeah. Well, you know
I
what I
think he
like
said
about
like
him?
love is love,
Yeah,
love is love, and that should be the way it is, and how people like when people would die of AIDS and their family, but that had nothing to do with them while they were alive, now come around and want all their stuff. You know, I hate that about that.
well,
People.
you know what I liked about him because what I do, I meet a lot of these people. I go to different movie conventions. One of them's Chiller in New Jersey, and I'll talk to these people. And for Apache Ramos, as I mentioned earlier, The Warriors is one of my favorite movies. He has one line in the movie. He's like, "We're gonna rain on you, Warriors." That's it. One scene. He's part of the orphans. This guy I interviewed for almost 2.5 hours because he had such an interesting life. He
Yeah,
worked in music with the Fat Boys, worked with AIDS patients for a while in the middle of the 80s when it
yeah.
first came out. He had the one
He's a
line in the movie he did, but his such a funny guy. So I love meeting these people and listening to their stories. I've learned so much, met so many great people. Another example, I'm not sure if you aired this one yet, is David Bean from the original West Side Story, and he also played in the new one too. He had a cameo. His name was Tiger in the original. We talked for almost 3 hours, just the stuff he's done, the things he's seen, the people he worked with. I mean,
Well, that's awesome. Yeah,
yes,
so I mean, that'll be one of the that'll be one of the ones I upload next. That way, people
yeah,
can.
yeah.
From the frenetic mind of author Rich Sear. 5 terrifying short stories, now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All of a sudden I hear, brim, brim.
What's a diaphragm again?
Ha! We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Waiting around for autumn, waiting around for autumn. I was watching the TV, I was watching the TV, and waiting around for winter, waiting around for winter. I was watching the TV, I was watching the TV.
Yeah, so I mean, that'll be one of the ones I upload next. That way, people
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
do that.
So it's just,
Check that
I
one
mean,
out.
and even people that don't have a name to them, like people like you, just there's so many interesting, talented people, and that's why for a little
Yeah,
while,
you never
for,
know.
for my viewers that are just watching this, I used to have another show called The Local Artist Show, but my co-host died recently, and so I stopped doing that show. But so I have a lot of some of the local people that I would put on that show on this show, and it's great because I love having the mixture of both, not just name, big names, not just small names, but like just I always say when somebody says, "Who do you have on your show?" I said, anybody who has an interesting story, anybody who's interesting and
Yeah.
wants to talk, they'll be on the show. And I've met so many great people that became friends, and I'm so grateful for this show.
And it means a lot to people, like
Yeah.
it means like a lot to me, like just to be able to talk like this and to meet you and to now like have a friend like you, like
Yeah.
it really means a lot because there's unfortunately there's a lot of people out there that just
Yeah.
aren't as awesome as you,
Yeah.
but
It took 54 years to become this awesome, but
hey, like exactly, but you never quit, and
Nope.
that's the problem. Some people just like, this is how I am, this is how I'm gonna be, like okay.
I know. No, exactly.
You know?
I could have easily sat back and said, "Oh, my right side isn't that strong, so I'm never going to be able to do it." I'm like, all I say to them is like, what's funny? I actually forget that I have it because I don't even think about it. When somebody goes, "Oh, I feel bad," like for what? There's nothing to feel bad about. And I said, "Oh, I know." I didn't even realize what they were talking about
Yeah.
because it's so natural to me now. So I that's why I mentioned before. I said I can't stand people that use things as excuses not to do what they want to do. And I think it's just more because they're afraid of failure. And then they figure if they have an excuse not to even start, then they don't have to say, "Well, I failed." I'd rather try and fail than never try at all.
Mhm.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, and I mean the failure is a key component to success.
Oh, exactly.
Nobody ever just, I mean, some people I'm sure just start and they're amazing or whatever. But it's like failure is something you learn from. Huh? It's something to be grateful for, that you have the ability to even fail.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think true failure is not even trying.
No. I used to always quote Michael Jordan. I'm going to get it wrong, but it goes somewhere to the point of like, I missed 15 of the game-winning shots. I missed 45 rebounds. I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. And when I was doing my motivational talks, I had the actual quote written down, but there's so much truth to that. It's like instead of saying never try, the only way you can actually succeed is if you keep trying and keep doing. I mean, like you said, there's going to be this phenom that comes out of nowhere and is just awesome immediately. But for the most part, just the more you do it, the more you keep at it, the better you're going to get, and just don't give up.
Yes, and success is it's a blanket statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's different things for different people, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's kind of like where I'm at right now. I feel like I've set out to do even more than I thought I ever could, even
Yep.
when it comes to writing, even, and let alone the person I grew to be,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the most important person you grew to be. But I want to talk about your writing and about your music because we talked about it a little bit with the music last interview, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into that. So with the writing, the story you sent me, which I'm going to read, I can't wait to finish it. Is that going to be? Are you going to try and send to a publisher? Are you going to self-publish it? We'll be able to find that on Amazon once it's released.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
That's where like the I think of like if I show it to some people and they think it is, you know, good enough for something like that, then yeah, maybe. I'm, but even I'm the type of person which I know could be detrimental to a career. It's like I'll make something and just send it to people and
Oh, yeah.
get their feedback on it and stuff. And it's I guess because it's a different form of writing for me, I'm feeling it out. I'm feeling how other people will take to it, and but I really do enjoy it. I really do enjoy writing in that kind of way because sometimes it get it gets exhausted rhyming,
Yeah.
or it gets exhausting, like just having things always rhyme. Luckily, I'm pretty good at it, and almost like it's like a second nature, second language type thing to me now.
Yeah.
But it's a good exercise of trying to pinpoint more on storylines and stuff like that, because I feel like that's where I'm going. Eventually, well, there will always be music, and I feel like music is um my thing, but deeper in that, there's like, oh, stories are the thing, where now it's like the stuff I write, I notice, you know, it all has a story. It's all like continuing um narrative kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, I would like to do that. I would like to publish something, and I guess it's more thinking like, oh, I'm not good enough for that yet.
No,
But
never think like that.
yeah.
What I'm gonna do is I have a friend that published he was starting his own publishing company. I don't know if he's still doing it. This was a couple years ago. And so he goes, Rich, do you mind if I publish your book? I said, mind, thank you. So he's the one and I have, like I'll say, I had this like stuff on the phone. I have hoodies.
Yeah.
I have, I don't know if you saw it.
That's awesome. Yep. Confessions of
So hoodies, t-shirts. I used to have the mask. I had the composition book. I have the book. I have it on not audio is what I want to do. That's my next thing. But so he's the one that was able to do all that. I'm not sure how he did it, but when you're ready, let me know. I'm going to send it to him. I'm going to see if he can do what he did for me. Because love every once in a while I'll see like $1.25 in my account. At first I thought it was fraud. I said, wait, $1.25. I said, oh wait, it's a credit. I called up and they're like, oh yeah, that's from Amazon. I said, oh, looks like somebody bought a book.
That's awesome. Hey, that's cool. I mean, even though it's $1.25, but I mean, hey,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And just the fact, like you said, I'm more like you. I'm not trying to do it to become rich. I just like people seeing what I'm doing and reading and enjoying what I write. So
yeah. creating. I
Yeah.
love creating. You know,
Yep.
my,
So
my brain is, it's kind of it's detrimental at some time
yeah.
at some points because you know I think Rod Serling said it the best. It's like writing isn't something that you. I'll have to paraphrase because I forgot, but writing isn't something that you like. Writers don't just. It's not something that you prepare for or
Mhm.
stuff like that. It's something that you succumb to.
Yeah.
It's something that is urging, that is inside you, that you just you need to do,
Mhm.
and if there's anything like that that I have, I'm glad it's that, you
Oh,
know.
you know, definitely. That's yeah. If you're gonna have something you're gonna succumb to, writing is a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And it was so impressive about Rod is everything he did, everything he accomplished. He died at 50 years old.
I know.
Man, that's amazing. Like the amount of work that he put. I mean, well, another example is um, he's a former guest. Speaking of the Twilight Zone, his name is Mark Dwidziak. He's an author. He wrote a book on the Twilight Zone. I interviewed him with Anne Serling, which is Rod Serling's daughter. He wrote a book now in Edgar Allan Poe. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading that, and he died at age 40. The amount of work that he did in all those years is amazing. And this guy just, I mean, the way he lived is just, I mean, there's tuberculosis, which was called consumption back then. There was so much illness, and he was always, and he had a drinking problem, just all the things that he went through. And for him to have that output, and which is so sad because it seems like a lot of people like that don't see the respect until years and years later. Like he was penniless. He was never
Yeah.
had the respect of anybody. I mean, he burned a lot, which I can't wait to interview him, Mark Dwidziak, because it's such an interesting story. Edgar Allan Poe was sort of very self-destructive. He liked to, he became a critic, and all these people that were happy with him, he just completely trashed them, and then nobody wanted him around. Like he wasn't part of the Society of Writers, and
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
everything. He sort of self-sabotaged
Yeah.
himself.
Which I
But
mean, how many of those writers do we talk about today? You know what I mean? That's where it's like he might have been onto something, but
yeah,
it's like, yeah. I feel like a lot of probably most writers have that kind of ego thing,
yeah,
where it's like if you don't know somebody like personally, then you're kind of like not every writer, I'm sure, but it's like, oh, they're not me, that kind of
yeah,
thing. But yeah, I guess it is kind of messed up if people are giving you good reviews and you're just trashing them.
oh, yeah,
I mean, unless that is your actual opinion, then it's like then you're a critic, so you should be giving your actual opinion. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's something that's like for me, writing is I can be competitive with it, but I always encourage people, like even if you know, uh, like anybody, people say like, "Oh, I can never do what you do," and I'm like, "Yeah, you could." I mean, I know I took a lot of time to do it and stuff, but it's it's doable, you know.
exactly. Like I
At
always
least
said, like it's all about prioritizing. That's what I was saying before. It's like
yeah,
I have so many different things I like to do, but I'll say, all right, from like 2 to 5, I'm going to work on the interview. Then after 5, I'll be able to do this, and so it's just I try to fit everything in, and because I want to do all these different things, and there's if people
yeah,
really want it bad enough, I said to go back to the using the excuse time. And that's why I love the fact that, like I said, poet, writer, sound engineer, producer, and so you're writing a story now. Do you still write music, or have you taken a break from that?
Oh no, actually, I've been really ramping up uh music production lately. Um, Me and my buddy Robbie, who's in a band, to 30 Second Men, to give them a shout out.
Okay,
They've
good.
been getting they've been getting a decent following around here in like the Albany area. I guess there's a big music scene
Oh,
going
good.
on out there. Yeah, and like we've made music together for years, and so like me and him were working on a couple songs, and I'm working on an album for myself. I'm not sure what it's going to be called yet, but I think I have all the music basically done for it. It'd be about 16 or so tracks, not including intros and maybe skits and stuff like that. And it's all, it's all pretty heavy stuff. I wouldn't say like heavy like metal, but just like, dark and um, you know, not everything is crazy dark or whatever, but there
Yeah.
will be I'm getting back into rapping as well. So
All right.
that stuff is usually dark. Um, that's where I get into a lot of like the satanic imagery and influences and stuff, and basically just try to say like it's rap, so you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
uh, but in like a mystical, like satanic kind of way, like the way I rap, it's not like money and women and stuff. Although those things might be mentioned, but it's not inherently like how you would like cliche or whatever. It's
Yeah.
basically like a cursed writer, so that stuff comes out regardless of what I do because that's how I started writing music. Was I started rapping and stuff, so that was my beginnings. A lot of my big influences are Tupac and Biggie Smalls, and
Mm-hmm.
Tupac definitely the most,
Yeah.
because he had a lot of kind of, I guess, mystical esque air around him as well, with the is he alive, is he not,
Oh yeah.
and it was only because in a lot of his songs he talked about how he would be, how he was going to die soon and all this stuff. And so it's like, they knew, and that really attracted me. Of
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, it's he's not just a rapper. There's questions, and you don't know is he alive? Like, how, he knew he was going to die, so maybe he made a plan or something. And now I was telling Ashley the other day, a lot of my writing now is more for when I'm dead. Knock on wood, I don't want to die soon or
Yeah.
whatever, but it's a lot of it is like not in that kind of way where it's like, oh, is he alive? It's just more
Yeah.
like it's gonna hit differently when I'm gone,
Mm-hmm.
in the kind of way, because like I not many people get to leave behind the amount of stuff that I have,
Mm-hmm.
songs written and stuff. I have so many songs that are probably even unreleased that people don't hear, that I just listen to, you know, stuff with me and Robbie, because when we release our stuff, we want it to be everybody gets the proper credits and stuff like that. Like we made a Christmas song a couple months ago. That was really good. That was
I
really good.
love it. Now, where do you release these? Do you record them at your house?
Yes, yep, yeah. Record them in my house, like the one I made for Ashley, which was the Dance with Me one. That was
Yeah.
um, and that song is just incredible. Like my best song that I've done so far. I I feel like like especially in like mixing and stuff, because I do all that stuff on my own too. I do it
Wow.
all. I play the piano, so it's like if you hear other instruments and stuff in my songs, it's because like I can just make sounds in the piano, but I come up with the chords or whatever, and the drums and stuff, and then I mix it all together so it sounds somewhat professional. you know it's just something I've never had any kind of uh college or teachings or whatever, but a lot of it is research, looking up stuff on YouTube and Google and stuff, and
Yeah.
getting into it, creating a certain vibe, how to do stuff. And it's a lot of atmosphere. But,
Yeah.
like that's my thing. That's why I like to create a lot of atmosphere that is mysterious and dark, and but not dark. It's hard to tell. It's like sad but evil sad. Kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
like the Tears of a Clown type thing. And psychotic madness. You know, I've had a fair share of bad acid trips in my day, and one of the actually my worst acid trip ever was at the band Tool.
Yeah.
I was at Alex Gray, which is like one of their main artists um for their artwork.
Hmm.
Alex Gray, he's like very psychedelic um painter. I was at his mansion and in the Catskills because they sell tickets around like solstices and stuff to go there, and I took some acid and went there years ago, and it was fine up until you ever hear of dabs?
No, that
It's like highly concentrated weed that
okay.
it's in like a goo form.
Okay.
And I took one of those. I took a hit of a dab, and nobody told me that it sends your it multiplies your trip by like 10,
Oh,
and it just create like horrible anxiety. And honestly, like to this day, I can tell like I still have anxiety that echoes from that bad trip because I was just alone in the dark at like this mansion, and all my friends left me because they were like I was bringing them down and stuff. They were like, "Oh,
oh
we're
man.
gonna." Yeah, so I'm out in the woods, and like going from like pacing, laying down, and I was like just seeing like visions of like my mom and sister coming to visit me in a psych ward, and like I was never gonna get better. So I was like, "Oh God!" And but like once it wore off, I was still messed up for a while, but then I that also was like a thing that's like, oh well, you know what? Use that as inspiration too,
Mhm.
because what else can you do,
Well, no,
But
that's
yeah,
what I
so
love. You take
I
the
don't mess with
worst.
that. Yeah,
No, I was gonna say you took the worst things in your life and turned them into a positive, and I love that.
yeah, yeah, and then it's really all you can do as a person,
Yeah.
like that's the best thing to do for yourself,
Hmm.
you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, this
So,
has
do
been a
you
great
have?
discussion. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, no, I'm enjoying this. I could talk all night about this. This is it. No, what I was gonna say was, see, you write music. Do
Mhm.
you also meant you write stories and you also write poetry? So, do you have anything published for your poetry?
Oh no, no.
No.
I mean, I guess like my poetry is more my poetry goes in my music, you
Okay.
know.
Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely. I mean, because I like when I was younger, when I was a kid, I wrote poetry, and and the teachers like I was in like I wasn't very good academically. You know I was in a lot of like special needs classes and stuff, and so
Yeah.
like when it came to like writing and poetry and stuff, teachers would like pull me aside and be like, "It's very good," almost like like don't tell anybody, but this was the best poem
Yeah.
in the class, and and I think that was like fourth or fifth grade, and that had sparked something that I didn't latch onto right away, but then later on made sense. Same thing. Also, I was in chorus, and I think in third grade, a similar thing kind of happened where the chorus teacher pulled me aside and was like, "You're really good," and I was like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
because like
No, it's good that I'm glad you had those supportive adults in your life that said, "No, you have something here. You should really try and do something with it." I love that because it's funny. You're not going to believe this, but up until about 11th grade, I was severely shy. I don't know what happened after that. I just now I won't show. They actually sent me to the 8th grade guidance counselors. They wanted to know why I wouldn't talk to anybody. I said, I don't know what he told me, but I hope he got a raise because now I won't shut up. But when I was in the only when I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old. The only thing that I really liked doing, I would not want to talk to anybody, but I loved writing stories, and I would actually write stories and read them in front of the class. And my teacher was trying to get me out of my shell, so she enrolled me in a writing class. And I said, I don't want to do this. She goes, No, I want you to do it. And I'm so glad that she did. I had a teacher that said, I see potential in you. She put me in the class. It was more just so me to be around people and feel more comfortable. That's just weird because I really don't remember why, but I really wasn't uncomfortable. Just for some reason, I just didn't. I was severely shy. But
yeah,
that was she was a teacher just like yours that said, you know what, Rich, I really love what you're doing. I think you should do something with it. And that's a love of mine that's come and gone over the years. Like, I do it for a while, then I do other things. Let's come back to it. So, I mean, I wrote that one book in 2018, and I do want to go back to writing. I just haven't had a chance to, because I'm having so much fun doing this. Yeah, I'm having so much fun doing this that, but I'll probably get back to it. Like you and I were actually talking about collaboration sometime. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, and I would still love that. I mean, because I don't know, I like to like think of premises or even just like little situations that I think could grow into stories. I mean, I know I said earlier that I'm a painter and stuff, and that I do it at the which I do, but I also do like to I think of like quick things. I'll just jot things down, and then maybe maybe go back to them. But I feel like I just have a lot of unused ideas, like even ones that haven't even been created yet. It's just like sitting there and thinking about something, sitting there just waiting, waiting for something to come to me, and that would be incredible if we could do like something like that together.
Yeah,
maybe I'll try to I'll maybe try to get something going soon, and maybe I'll send you a couple ideas or whatever.
Okay. No, that sounds great. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And it's funny you said that, because I saw a documentary on Woody Allen a couple years ago, and they said, "How do you ever run out of ideas?" He opened up his drawer and he goes, "No," and he said, "I'll tell you why. Because in the drawer he'd pull out a piece of paper and it had like one sentence and it had a premise of something. He goes, I write it down, I'll throw it in there, and they'll come back to it and say, oh, yeah, I forgot about this one. Let me write this story." Then he picked up another one. Oh, yeah, here's another one I want to write a story about. So he would do the same thing. He would just come up with these premises, write them down before he forgot, put them away, and then come back to them, maybe a month or two later and say, oh, yeah, I want to do that. So he says he's never, ever had a problem coming up with ideas.
And there's so many stories that haven't been written. It's like even if it's something similar to something, it's still new. It's still like if you make it new and you don't just plagiarize. I'm not saying you, but if like there's, I think that stories and stuff there's an infinite amount of things that you can do.
Yeah. Well, I like people that take an old premise but twist it to make it original. I mean, I like that too. Like, perfect example is I'm going to be interviewing Michael Levy, who's the producer and actor in Terrifier 1 and 2 and so many other movies. And getting ready for this interview, I've watched 5 of his movies, and a lot of his movies have just what I just said, a premise that you've seen so many times before, but he takes it, puts a brand new twist on it. That's what I want to talk to him about, because every movie he does is completely original. It's hilarious. It's scary. It's fun. It's just
Terrifier is one of the scariest movies I've seen in a long time. Honestly, like legit, like I don't know. There's not movies nowadays. They're very and horror movies. Unfortunately, they're kind of like cookie cutter.
Yes.
Like Terrifier was a movie that made me uncomfortable, and that's what I look for in a movie. Like whatever that guy was doing, he's got it. Like he's got exactly what, and that's what I want to like go for, and like in music and stuff. And so it's awesome that you're interviewing that guy, because that is one of the last movies that I saw, and it was years ago, of course, not too long ago. I saw it after it came out, maybe like 2-3 years ago, and I was like, this is legit unnerving. It is like
what's funny for me, I met them a couple years ago at the Chiller convention. They were great guys to talk to, but then I never saw the movie. I said, oh, it's a movie. I didn't realize it. But I saw it. I kept on hearing about Terrifier 2. I said, I got to check this movie out. I went to the theater. There was 2 people in front of me, and they said, yeah, like 2 tickets for Terrifier. Like, there's only 1 seat left. I said, I'll take that 1 seat. I got the last seat in there. I ended up seeing that movie 3 times in the theater. That was so, I mean, it's like you said, it's scary, but it's funny. And you actually end up rooting in a weird way for Art the Clown, because he's just like so unlike any other clowns. I mean, maybe no, he's not even. I could tell that
He's like
interview him. He likes Pennywise, but Art is completely different from Pennywise.
Art. Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather deal with
What was
Pennywise.
that?
Like I would rather deal with Pennywise, as in like
Oh yeah,
Pennywise
no.
isn't as scary as Art, because
Oh yeah, no.
Art
Art is a sadistic bastard, and I love
yeah,
that. But he does it with such glee and such fun. He's like, he's
and
always
that's
got
what
the
makes it like
yeah,
that acting is incredible.
yeah.
You know,
Yep. So it was
like
funny
this.
because right after I got home, I looked up the guy on Facebook. I tried to message him. I couldn't get in touch with him. But when I was showing my wife the movie Happy Birthday to Me, I don't know if you're the original 1981 version. It's a great horror movie. You gotta check it out. She stops it. She goes, "Wait, I know this girl." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I went to school with her." So I met. It was Leslie Donaldson. So you just put that up.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. I just put that. I was gonna say, I was like, I remember hearing this
Yep.
in the
So Leslie, when I was interviewing her, she goes, "Did you ever interview Michael Levy?" I said, "I want to get in touch with you." She goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll reach out to him." So she reached out to him, and she got this interview for me. So Leslie, if you're watching this one, thanks again, because it's and she's also got me an interview with the actor who played in Justice for All, The Warriors, and The Thing. I can't remember his name right now, but I'm going to be interviewing him.
thing. Oh yeah, which is the yeah, the John Carpenter thing, right?
Yeah. And
That's
he played
so
in
incredible.
Justice for All with Al Pacino, which is another great movie.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one.
I'll tell you what is.
There's so many movies out there. It's like, like when people are like, "Oh, you haven't seen that movie?" It's like yeah, so many, especially now I've been taking so much time and like just with writing,
Oh, I know. No,
it's
yeah.
like a real balance. Like I could write all day, every day, it's like, and then so it's like trying to balance life on top of being a writer. It's, you know,
Oh yeah, no, I completely understand. I don't watch. It's funny. I don't watch movies at home. I have this thing called the A-lister where I pay $25 a month. I can see 3 movies a week every week. I don't see that many movies, but I'll just
you
check
go
out.
to the theater.
Yeah, so I love going
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah, I
so I
remember
love the
you,
theatrical experience. So I
yeah,
see
you
a
took
lot of
us.
movies in the movies, and I'll see movies that because $25, I see 2 movies, I get my money's worth. So I'm saying like, let me check this out. What do I have to lose? And I saw so many great movies I would probably never even think of. And the actor's name I'm thinking of is Thomas G. Waits. He's the one who played in The Warriors and Justice for All. Look him
Okay.
up. Yeah, so Leslie hooked me up with 2 great actors slash producers slash acting coach. I mean, so it's like I said, I met so many great people through this show, and everybody's been so supportive and wants to see that. So, I can't express the appreciation I have for everybody enough.
Yeah, man. And you're the ringmaster, like you got it going on. Actually, I was telling Ashley, like, come to think of that, I was like, it's a repeated thing that I hear in your interviews. So like, oh, my uncle, told me that. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
who is this? I'm like, who is this guy's uncle? Because how does he know all this? Is he in radio or something? Or
No, he's just a guy that loves going to conventions, but he's very
oh,
friendly. He became
okay,
friends with all these people.
that's awesome. Yeah, I was like, who is this? I
Yeah.
was like, who is Uncle? Because he knows all of these. I was like, does Rich have some like some super famous uncle that?
Yeah. Nope. Not at all.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
that's really awesome. Yeah, I mean, if when is the Chiller convention usually? You said that one's in New Jersey?
Yeah. It's in New Jersey. They have one the last weekend of October and then another one in April. So the one in April is coming up soon. I'll give you all the info.
Oh yeah. Well, that one we probably won't be able to make it because we have our cruise in April.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'd be definitely down to go to go out there too, and hang out and stuff, and maybe have dinner
Yeah,
somewhere.
definitely.
You know,
I will
yeah, I was telling
definitely.
Ashley it'd be really cool to like have dinner, have a dinner with you, at some point. And
Yeah.
I know we're both busy and we both live in different states, but you know, it's
It's
like down the line.
Oh no, most definitely. We'll make that happen. And October is usually the better one because it seems like
Yeah.
it's around Halloween time. They have the better guests.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
I will definitely keep you updated on that.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, that would be great.
And the best part now is that I've had enough bigger guests, bigger names, I should say, that when I can go up to somebody and I'll say, "Oh, well, I've had D. Walls, Heather Thomas. Oh, wait, you've had Heather Thomas? I'll do the show. Oh, wait, you've had this person? I'll do the show." So now it's getting to the point where I could just tell people who I've already interviewed, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize they did," because they know it's a legitimate show now, which I love.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like when, like the D Wallace one, like I obviously knew like the look of the mom and ET, but like she was obviously older in the picture that
Oh
you
yeah,
used, and I didn't know her name, so I was like, who? And then so I saw like the credits, and at the beginning of the video that you did for D Wallace, there was like a little clip of another movie,
yeah, The Howling.
and yeah, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, mom from ET.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
yeah.
I was like, that's
She
incredible.
I mean, she's done probably over 100 movies, and she's a huge fan of Rob Zombie. She plays in all his movies.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
Howling, E.T., The Frighteners. I'm sure you heard that story with the guy Peter Jackson, who directed all the Lord of the Rings,
Yep.
directed The Frighteners, and her husband died while she was filming, and they filmed in New Zealand. He flew her all the way back to America for the funeral and flew her all the way back for free. Didn't take it out of her pay or anything. She said she almost
That
started
was a Michael J.
crying.
Fox movie, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she plays
I love that movie as a kid. I love
yeah.
that movie.
Yep, so she's in that
And
one too.
E.T.
Oh yeah, no, D is a great actress, and what makes it so great is when these people that I grew up watching end up talking to them, and they're the nicest people in the world. You know, like,
Yeah, I know.
that's what I love.
It's like relieving in a way.
Yeah,
Where it's like, oh, okay, these are like, yeah, really nice, down to earth people, and you know, because like it's weird how like the big screen or people in media and stuff, how separated that they can seem from
hmm
being like just regular people, you
yeah,
know, and it's just great that that you can talk to people like that, and just the way with the amount of knowledge that you bring to it and stuff. Like I see it, I literally see it blow them away, and it's like
yeah,
it blows me away, you know. And it's just, I don't know, I really love going through them, and putting them up, and there's a really good feeling of being like, helping,
yeah. Well, no, I love having you part of Team Claw's Corner.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I love-
I really couldn't be more grateful to to be a part of it now. I
yeah.
really appreciate it.
Well, believe me, it's just going to get bigger and better. So,
Yes.
thank you, Rich. Before we go, I mean, I could talk to you all night. Unfortunately, I have to get to work in a couple hours.
Yep.
But
No problem.
is there anything we talked about your music, talk about your poetry? Is there any talk about your book? Is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about before we go?
Um, as of right now, I'm working on everything, and so it's just, I would say within probably maybe our next conversation, I might be closer to announcing something, or
Okay.
closer to something. But I mean, I really appreciate it. People can find me. You can look me up on Spotify, Rob Bull. Same thing on YouTube. Look up Rob Bull. I'm also on Amazon, or yes, I believe I'm also on Amazon Music and Apple Music. Um, I don't have a lot of stuff out there right now, I'm also on SoundCloud. I have to become more organized, but um, if there's anything people want specifically, I can send them stuff if they get a hold of me on my Facebook, Rob Bull. You can message me, and um, I could send you stuff. We could talk about whatever. People that are looking to have music for any kind of videos or whatever. I'm not expensive,
Yeah.
and I don't know, if you're a cool person, I might just do it for free, and just for the experience to do something with somebody, So I appreciate it. I like to work with people because it gives me a challenge and motivation to impress and succeed, and to help other people. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm looking for stuff to do. So if somebody wants to collaborate or whatever, even though I'm creating all this stuff, I still feel like I'm not doing enough, which is,
I have something for you. This just came to me because the other night I went to New Jersey. I saw the New Jersey Symphony play the best of John Williams. And if
That's
people don't know
awesome.
who he is the probably the greatest living composer.
Yeah.
Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters, Jurassic Park. Oh my God, Schindler's
Back to
List,
the
Lincoln,
Future,
Back to the Future, Witches of Eastwick.
Harry Potter.
Yes, Home Alone. He just got nominated for an Oscar. It's his 53rd nomination for Meet the Fablemans, which is the biography of Spielberg. He is the only composer ever to have a lifetime achievement award. He won 5 Oscars, and he's the most nominated person in Oscar history. So the reason I bring that up was whenever I do something like that, then I go down these little rabbit holes. So I watched a couple documentaries on him. I watched another one called Score. It's all about composers that make music in movies, and you don't realize. I always did realize, but music is what pushes the movie forward, makes you cry, makes you scared. It's not the movie itself. I think you should start doing music for movies. That's what would be next for
I
you.
would, yeah, I would love to do that. I wrote something the other day that that I was like, this would be perfect for a video game or a movie. I'm a very atmospheric, cinematic, music writer, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that would be incredible, if and if you know anybody that would want anything or anything like that, please let me know, Rich,
I know, I
because
definitely will. That's
you
that's
know,
why I brought that up because all the things that you're talking about, you're looking for something new to do. I think you need to do a soundtrack. And what made me think of that too is that Trent Reznor, who was Nine Inch Nails, they asked him to do the movie, this Social Network about Facebook, and he won an Oscar for that. So you never
yeah,
know. And to look at Danny
yeah,
Elfman
you
was in
never know.
Oingo Boingo.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, I would really love that because yeah, I love movies and like a lot of like a lot of songs and stuff that I get and download nowadays are songs that I'll hear in a movie that I'm like, oh, that's a great song, and then it'll, and then now that song will attach to that, you know, I'll have that memory of the movie in my head or the scene or whatever, and yeah, I'm a very visual music writer, if that
Hmm.
makes sense,
No, it does. That's how I am with writing. Like
mhm.
when I write, I can. It's almost like I'm watching it on the screen as I'm writing because I can see what I'm. Yeah. So that's. I definitely know what you're saying when writing music, being visual.
Yeah, and I just want to get out there. I just want to give, give to the world, create, and you know, any way that I can.
Yep.
So
Well, you have a lot
and
to
like,
give, Rob.
yeah, thank you. I
Yep.
really appreciate it, Rich, and so do you. I, I hope I'm as energetic at your age.
I hope so. You have a lot more years to go until you're my age, so
Yeah,
you have a while to worry about that. Anyway, great. So it's always great to talk to you. I will
yes,
be in touch with you, sending you more video. Or actually, you have all the videos, but this will be airing soon on YouTube, and then from there we'll put it on Spotify and the rest of them. Everybody else, please check it out on YouTube, my radio stations in Connecticut, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Once again, Rob Bull, thank you very much for being on the show. And that wraps up the latest episode of the Claws Corner. A huge thanks goes out to poet, writer, sound engineer, and producer Rob Bull, aka the Sorcerer King, for taking time out of his very busy schedule. You heard all the things he does, and he's looking for more work to be on the show. I also need to thank John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for always doing an impeccable job editing the show each and every week and making it available to all. Another huge thanks goes out to the extremely talented Joseph Timothy Quirk for their and Rob Bull once again because he's brought to a whole new thing for their hard work and dedication, making my show available on several radio stations as well as Amazon Music, Audible, iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. It's greatly appreciated. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
You will dance with